We've got to deal with self. And the natural extension from self is kind. That's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. Now, as Minister Farrakhan points out, Islam is inclusive. It's not exclusive. Divine will is imprinted on human nature. You know that? There's a divine imprint on all our natures. Every human being on earth. Therefore, Islam is there for anyone who will submit to Allah and accept it. But I can't at this point, because I'm not at that stage. I haven't reached the stage with self and kind to do any outreach. Let me tell you what I'm saying. And don't go say, oh, see that, Mr. Farrakhan is saying that we got to link arms with everybody around the earth, and you saying something different. Wait a minute. He's absolutely right. We have got to do that. Somebody's got to do it. If you went down to Marshall Field, Carson Peary Scott, you came into the luggage department, and I'm selling luggage, and you tell me you want to buy some lingerie, sister, what could I do? Send you to the person selling lingerie. That ain't my department. Okay? Don't say, well, you supposed to be working for Marshall Fields, ain't you? Marshall Fields sell lingerie, don't they? Well, by logic, if you working for Fields sell lingerie, I want to buy lingerie, you supposed to sell me some lingerie. Logical, but not valid. Well, I go tell Mr. Shriver, you ain't with his program. No, I'm with his program, you just in the wrong department. So, I love all of my Arab brothers and sisters, African brothers and sisters in the Caribbean and all that. It just happens that my department that I work in is the so-called Negro department. And understood? And we got people that work in them all. But my department is the one where the folks are who descended from the folks who were slaves for 310 years and then spent another 122 years or so, in servitude, and not in servitude, but in hidden slavery. That's my department, okay? Now, as I just pointed out, we had a problem. The whole nation fell because we failed a test. We didn't understand the information that was being taught us, and when we got tested on it, we flunked. Now, Minister Farrakhan has said this over and over ever since he stood up. You got to take the test again. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Well, what are we going to be tested on? Same thing we were tested on last time. Can't flunk algebra and go say, well, I want to take physical education because you know that's a SOP. No, you got to pass the same thing you just flunked. But the difference, he said, is Minister Farrakhan says this time he is giving us the answers. And some of us may say, whew, that's better. Now I know I can make it. Be too sure. Those of you who have college backgrounds, you are familiar with what is known as the open book exam. The first time you heard about that thing, you say, hey, just like you heard about the minister giving us the answer. Open book exam, what's that? Well, that's where you can take the textbook into class with you. They give you the test and you can go, hey, man, I like this. That was the first one. But you get somebody that's been around that campus for a while and has taken a few, when you say, we have an open book exam, oh my God. Because they know what that means. Because when you take a standardized exam, it's mostly memory. You memorize a few things and you get in there and you fill in the blanks or do the multiple choice or whatever you're going to do. But when you take an open book exam, it means that the exact words to the answer are not in the book. You got to understand the depth of the concepts that you're supposed to have. That means you got to really understand your subject matter. You can't shuck and you can't carry no ponies. So this is what we've got coming. Or we're already in it. An open book exam. You say, well, Minister Farrakhan is giving us the answers. What answers is he giving us? He's giving us actually the answer, singular. He's giving us what we need to pass the exam. By this course that he's got us undertaking, we can develop what's necessary. And we're talking about the knowledge, the facts, the data. No, it's not that kind of an exam. It's not going to test how smart you are. Not going to test how good a memory you got, how fast you can read. No. That's not going to help you. All the intellect, acumen, sagacity, perspicacity, and all them other big words, including elephant, will not help you through this one. It's not a test of the head, it's a test of the heart. That's why we flunked, because we thought, if I can recite all my lessons, backwards and forwards, start learning them in Arabic, I can make it. But it wasn't in your heart. Now, Brother Minister Farrakhan is trying to get us in shape so that if he leaves for any reason, now he went away from us for a few months, and that's when he determined what he had to do. Because we were headed down the same trail we were headed before. And last Sunday in Los Angeles, Brother Minister Farrakhan was explaining Jesus' use of the term good shepherd. Because, you know, a shepherd keeps his sheep together, because without the shepherd, the sheep will scatter. But Jesus qualified the term shepherd. He said, but there's a good shepherd. So you got a lot of folks out there who would like to shepherd this flock. But they want to shepherd this flock so that this flock can bad to them. But Minister Farrakhan points out, the good shepherd gets the flock so that if the shepherd leaves, the flock will stay intact. Because the flock will not be dependent upon the shepherd. He's not trying to enslave us, as so many other people are. He wants us to be self-sufficient. He wants us to stand up for the first time in our life. And some of us say, I stood up with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. No, you didn't. Now, I'm not calling you a liar. You thought you were. I thought I was. But you see, this is why the Holy Quran says we must believe in the unseen. Because we saw us standing, but we didn't see the prop that was holding us up. We thought we were standing on our own. And soon as Allah snatched the prop, down we went with a crash. Humpty Dumpty had nothing on us. All of the guidance, all of the things that we need to take us from here to the hereafter are contained in this book, the Holy Quran. That confused some people. There were some people who were taught and believed we don't need anything but the book. Grab the book, open it up and say, this is it. This is our leader. We don't need anybody else. Well, it can come to that. It should come to that. This book is definitely a guide. It opens up telling you it's a guide. So if it's a guide, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, since a fisherman is not a fisherman until he fishes, a guide is not a guide till he guides. So now, but now, we thought we could follow this book. And you look at all of those of us who tried to take this book and follow this book, where are they now? There's nothing against the book. The book got everything in it we need. But that's not sufficient for us at the stage that we're at. Just give me the book, I can handle it. Tell you what you do. If you have acute appendicitis, anytime in the future, I'll give you my phone number. If you have acute appendicitis and that bad boy is about to rupture, I have a book on my shelf that tells you everything you need to know about performing an appendectomy. I'll give you the book.
Yes.
And then we'll send the coroner to go pick up that fool with a book in his hand and a knife in his side. No. If you want that appendix taken care of, the same knowledge that's in the book is necessary, but you got to get somebody who is trained and skilled in how to apply the knowledge that's in the book to get your appendix out. Look, we got all the prophets' books. Well, not all of them, but we got enough of them. And we got Moses, we got Ezekiel, we got Isaiah, we got Jeremiah. I mean, we got a bunch of folks' books. What shape are we in? I mean, with all of that, what kind of shape are we in today with all those prophets' books? This book, Muslims got this all over the world. They're all in bad shape. There's not a Muslim nation that's at peace right now except those that are sucking up to the Jews and the Christian nations. So now, what happened? Why are the people who are practicing what Jesus and Muhammad and all those folks taught? What happened to them? You got all their books. Well, that's just like that appendectomy. You gonna tell me the operation was successful, but the patient died? Look at the way that the Muslims study Islam. You'll find that most of the foreign Muslims refer more to the hadith, the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad than they do to the Quran. Why? Because when they read the book, they tell you they're scholars, but they can't get no sense out of it. So they study the life of Muhammad to try to find out how you're supposed to apply this stuff, man. That's what they're doing. They study how he did it to figure out how they can't just read the book and do it. They got sense enough to know that. But they have to study his life to see what he did. Yeah, they know what the words say, but it doesn't mean anything. They have to watch a man to find out how to make those words apply. Praise is due to Allah. The actions of the man are so important. So brothers and sisters, have you ever noticed? We don't even have a book by Jesus. Did you notice that? Notice that. You study Jesus' life, don't you? You study what Jesus did, how he applied that which he was given by the Father. But there is no book of Jesus in anybody's Bible. You got Matthew, Mark, you got Luke, you got John, and you got Paul, Peter. No, but you do not have a book by Jesus. Think about this. It's so important to know how to apply the teaching. They didn't even give you the teaching. They just showed you the man applying it and say you can get there better by studying him than you can by studying what he taught. This book is definitely a guide. But this book qualifies. In the opening of the book, Allah himself says, this book, there is no doubt in it, is a guide. But a guide to whom? It doesn't say a guide to everybody in the world. It says that it is a guide to those who are from among the mutaqin. That's the Arabic word that's in there, and you find different translators translated differently. Maulana Muhammad Ali says, those who keep their duty. Yusuf Ali says it's a guide to those who fear God. The root of the word is ittaka, which means to guard against evil. Now, what is the difference? Or is there a difference? And why can one word be translated so many different ways by the different translators? You know, when the Bedouins, the desert dwellers as they were called, came to Muhammad one time, 1400 years ago, and told him that they believed, he was so overjoyed until Allah revealed to him to go back to them and tell them, don't say you believe. say you submit. It says, don't say amana, I believe. Say aslama, I submit. When you submit, this book didn't say, this book, there's no doubt in it, is a guide to those who are from among the Muslims. Didn't say that. The word Islam means to submit entirely to the will of God for whatever reason. Muslim is one who does that. Iman is belief or faith in God. One who does that is called mu'min, the believer. This book does not say it is a guide to those who are from among the mu'min. It says that it is a guide to those who are from among the muttaqin. And none of the translators were wrong. That one word, you could write a whole paragraph on the meaning of it. And there are so many other words that come out of it. Taqwa, fear of God. But none of the three definitions I just mentioned to you are wrong, because those who fear God guard against evil by doing their duty. Praises due to Allah. The first stage of belief is to become a Muslim. You submit. You submit and say, yes, I believe Allah is God. You declare. You say, I want to serve Allah. You're still doing a little wrong. You may not be doing something unlawful, but you're doing something not good for yourself. You don't just come in today and then tomorrow you're perfect. It don't happen like that. So you got some things to go through. You say, that's Farrakhan right, boy. After this pack, I'm giving them up. Oh, yeah. We all went through that. But now, that's the first stage. You want to leave off evil. You want to do right. That's the first stage. When it enters into your heart that you want to do right, then you're a Muslim. You're striving to leave off your evil habits. Then when you become mu'min, you're a believer. You have left off all of your evil habits that you can identify. You have not yet reached the pinnacle. Because though you don't do it, still got a little pull on you. Oh yeah, still got a little pull on you. Yes, sir. You done gave it up. But every time you pass by one of them billboards and say, I assume you drink Martell, you say, oh, I almost had a wreck. You don't do it, but you ain't out of the woods yet. The book won't guide you. This book will not guide you when you submit, want to do right, but haven't found a way to do it yet. This book will not guide you. When you get to the point where you believe so strongly that you have left off all evil, but you still have that strong attraction pulling at you, this book will not guide you. But when you reach the stage where you have left off evil, have no more desire for evil, now you don't have to operate and practice your religion in a negative sense of what I don't do this and I don't do that, but you spend all your waking hours looking for good to do, then you are from among the muttaqin. And ain't none of us reached that stage yet. That's the stage that Minister Farrakhan is trying to get us to. He's developing us by stage, and he's patient. He's patient because he knows it's not going to happen in a day or two. So he's working with us to develop our will, to develop in us the ability to guarantee our success by taking conscious and deliberate action in the name of Allah and knowing that it's going to work out right. Not hoping, not thinking, because see, some of us mess up, get all confused in that. We say inshallah and try to lean on him. No, we say inshallah because we know ain't nothing going to happen unless he lets it happen. But we put our will to work and say, I'm going to say be, and it is inshallah. All praises due to Allah. Is he in step with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on that? Yes. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, don't will and then be suspicious that your will not come to pass. See, this is why a lot of us say, well, you know, I try to believe that, and you know, I put my will out on something and it didn't work. Because you put it out thinking it might not work. Yeah, you know, like putting your toe in the water to see how hot it is, how cold. No, dive.
Yes, sir.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that when you doubt that your will come to pass, you have said a prayer to Allah and you put your will out there. He said, if you have the least bit of doubt that it's going to happen, you have doubt in yourself, you doubt your prayer, and you doubt the God that you pray to, you're a hypocrite. Minister Farrakhan said it another way. He said, doubt is the mother of hypocrisy. That's right. How can you doubt unless you disbelieve in God? You go into a battle. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to tell us, if they come at you with a tank, and you know we don't carry weapons, we got nothing but our bare hands and Allah. He said, if they come at you in tanks, he said, if you say Allahu Akbar and charge the tank, you might survive. If you turn heels and run, you got to die.
That's right. That's right.
See? Doubt is the mother of hypocrisy, and doubt and fear are Siamese twins.
Go ahead.
Right? You don't have any doubt in the God. Therefore, as the Holy Quran tells you, when you are of those who do good, who believe and do good, you have no fear, nor shall you grieve. Don't have to be afraid, and you ain't going to have to grieve over nobody after it's over because you stood tall. Just show you about that. Fear. Fear is real, brothers and sisters. It's real. It's not material. It's not matter. Because you know matter, and those of you who are these expert physicists, correct me if I'm wrong, but matter has to have weight and occupy space, right? Okay, you can't put fear on a scale and make the needle waver. It doesn't have any weight, but it occupies space. Fear occupies space. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that fear is parasitic. It must have a host to thrive on. So he said, that is why when you are in a battle or about to go into a battle and you're afraid, which is natural, you're going to go in it afraid. You were born afraid. And then the fear was nursed in you. So you got the fear. Don't say you wasn't. When you see a hero, that's not somebody who wasn't afraid. You see somebody that's a fool, that's somebody who wasn't afraid. But when you see a hero, the reason he's a hero, the reason they paying medal on, because they know he overcame fear.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
That's what makes you a hero, not being a fool. Now, I ain't scared of nothing. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, when you get that fear out of you, by it having to occupy space, and by it being parasitic and must have a host, when the fear comes out of you, it goes into your enemy. That's why when you don't have fear, you see your enemy turn tail. We had an experience years ago when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was dedicating the mosque in Baltimore, Maryland. And the police came out with their dogs. And the FOI was lined up at attention. And the police came up with their dogs and had them behind us with their noses just about touching the legs of some of the brothers. And Elijah Muhammad Jr., who was the Assistant Supreme Captain at that time, said, "About face!" And we made an about face, and all of these well-trained attack dogs started shivering and getting behind their master.
Go ahead. All right. Yeah.
God is worshipped by everybody in one form or another. Brother Jabril, who was here last Sunday and also again yesterday, points out quite graphically that there are folks who think they're atheists and don't know they believe in some God. Whatever you put your trust in, whatever you're willing to entrust your life to, that's your God. And tell me you don't believe in no God, you believe in something. You believe that there is something that's got more power than you that can save your tail out of a crack when it gets in one. You believe that. That's right. In fact, I remember back when I was a youngster during World War II, and the soldiers came back laughing about all them atheists that when they got in trouble over there in the foxholes and the bullets, you know, they start hollering, "Oh Lord." You know? Now, what is this religion to do about the fact that God is worshipped in so many forms and so many different ideas and conceptions of God? It crystallizes our conception of God into one. He is above all tribal deities and national gods. The Holy Quran talks of him as the Lord of all the worlds. Okay? You got people who worship a God who only cares about them, supposedly. See, their God only is with their nation or with their race or with their, whatever it is, their little sect, their club or whatever. You got folks who believe that. So, God, as I say, doesn't make a man who argues. He said, okay, fine. All I want to tell you is, if you got all them little gods that do all that stuff, the God that I'm talking about is the one that can whip them all put together. He can pull them in line, he can command, because he is the one God with the one power. Now, if you worship anything other than him, they got to submit to him. Okay, now we're on a plane where we can talk. And it is this that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has implanted on Minister Farrakhan so indelibly that is causing a lot of confusion among those who have weak understanding. Let me quote the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said, in widening our conception of the divine being, we enlarge the circle of brotherhood of man to include all nations of earth, and so widen the outlook of human love and sympathy. That's a direct quote. From what? From the lessons that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave to his ministers. Okay? Now, when you find that there are Muslims who've been in a nation for years and years and years and who are unfamiliar with that quote, it is because the minister that was responsible for them knowing that never taught it because he didn't understand it. It conflicted with his concept of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was teaching. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was telling us in that lesson, says, look, I'm giving you a narrow concept of God because I'm giving you a concept that's needed for one group of people. But as you grow, you have to broaden your concept of God so you can broaden the message to go to the world.
That's right. That's right.
This is why in the Holy Quran, it speaks of a messenger being raised up in the 21st chapter, 107th verse, as a mercy to the nations. Not to one nation. And it wasn't Muhammad. Muhammad was there for Arabia.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Break it down. Yes, sir.
Look how the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote a book called Message to the Black Man of America. Because that's the message that he came to bring. But he was producing one who would take that same message and show that it's applicable to every human being who's willing to accept it. There are those who knew that, wise and crooked deceivers, who knew that and tried to exploit that portion of the messenger's teaching that he didn't give to everybody to try to make us love white folks. They tried to take that and interpret that to make us think that, well, what we're supposed to do is forgive all the hurt of 400 years and then put our arms around our slave masters. That's crazy.
That's right.
That ain't what he means. Not by a long shot. Let me give you another direct quote from the minister's lessons, sent to the ministers by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Holy Quran was not meant for one people or one age. And accordingly, the scope of its moral teachings is as wide as humanity itself. See that? There are many of us been in the nation 100 years. Well, I won't say 100 years. Not familiar with that, are we? We're not even familiar with that concept. Yet that's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was teaching the men he had sitting around his table, sucking up heat and eating up his food that he had there supposed to be helping him. And the reason that you got a warped view of it is because his ministers gave you a warped view of it. They got you hung up in one facet, all of which was true. But they got you hung up in one facet and you couldn't see the rest of it. That's why the nation fell so easily. That's why we were so vulnerable. Because we are trying to take one little, just like taking a book, you read one page and you're an expert. Here's all the rest of the pages you don't even see, yet you're an expert in that field. That's crazy. And this is what we were. We knew that the white man was the devil. And when you got past that, you could hang us every time.
That's right.
That's right. Anything else you came up with, we were lost, get mad, and fight. Why a lot of us used to get in jail. Right here on the streets of New York. A lot of us busted, jamming somebody upside the head because they got us into something we couldn't explain. Because we didn't understand our own religion.
That's right.
Out here trying to bring folks into something we don't even understand. Praise be to Allah. One last quote from that particular minister's lesson on the fundamental principles of Islam. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, think over your own nature, how your very colors and tongues differ from each other. Yet in spite of all these differences, are you not but a single people? All right. You got the picture? Well, why didn't Muhammad come and start teaching the whole world? No. We, the black people of America, are the future rulers of the world. You understand that? Now, we had to get the message first in order to begin to qualify ourselves to rule. Can't give everybody the stuff at the same time. No, give it to us and let the seed grow in us. And then as it grows in us from 35 to 50 years, we can grow up from Muslim sons to adult, mature Muslims. You say, you mean that stuff that you just got through quoting, reading, was from the same Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Taught white folks was the devil, taught us all about slavery, taught us all about lynching, all that, and wouldn't let white folks even hear the teaching, didn't want it? So that's right. Same man. Well, did he change? Did he switch? No, he never changed. It was time. And this the same Farrakhan that used to preach it just as hard as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad against white folks and all that. Same Farrakhan. And he's the same one that stood up there and that you heard on the radio today, those of you who listen. He's standing up there in front of a whole bunch of white students, a handful of black, teaching white folks. Is this the same Farrakhan? Same one. Well, is he deviating from the teachings? Not a bit. Can we prove it? Oh, yes. Tell you what you do. You take one disciple or apostle of Jesus, Matthew. Just one. Now you read Matthew, the 10th chapter, the 5th and 6th verse. Then you read Matthew, the 28th chapter, and the 19th verse. Now, in the 10th chapter, Jesus is talking, he's just got his disciples together, and he's training them for their mission. And Jesus tells them, look, don't go to the Gentiles, don't go to the Samaritans, you don't go to nobody but the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I don't want you teaching nobody else. I want you to teach them. Now, in the 28th chapter, what has happened is Jesus has been captured. His enemies had a plot to kill him. Jesus appeared as if they had won, but Jesus beat death.
That's right.
And you find in the 28th chapter that Jesus is telling Matthew's telling the folks, hey, he's telling the rest of the disciples. Let me tell you what Jesus said. He said, Jesus said, go and teach to all the nations. Same Jesus, from the same God, but look at the message. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Before Calvary, the teaching was for one people. After Calvary, the teaching was for the world. The man is on time. You hear me talking to you? As a disciple of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he taught only to black folks and only that which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was teaching at that time. But as the number one apostle of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad today, he is teaching the message to the world as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had instructed him to do previously. Okay. All right. And of course, you got those so-called experts who used to follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who now try and ridicule the very root and core of his teaching. They run around saying Farrakhan is still spreading the myth of a black scientist creating white folks. Myth. Yeah, he's still spinning the fairy tale about Yakub making white folks. Well, let's see how much of a myth that is. According to all of the laws of genetics, if white folks were here first, as they try to teach us, none of us would be here now. It is genetically impossible for white folks to produce black folks. White dogs can't produce a gray dog. Nothing recessive can produce anything that's dominant. So if anybody produced anybody, we had to have produced them. They say, well, they're still telling that lie. I thought they'd given that up a long time ago, but they're still telling that lie about, you see, those who lived in cold climates, they're white. And those who lived in hot climates, they're dark. Man, how long the Eskimos been at the North Pole? They ain't got white, the hair ain't got blonde, the eyes ain't got blue yet. Praise is due to Allah. You'll find the history of the making of white folks right in your Bible, in many places, principally, though, when you see Jacob wrestling with the angel. Jacob, in Hebrew and Arabic, the name is Yakub. And there are a whole bunch of Jews and Arabs running around today with the name Yakub. So they can't deny it. And the Bible was not originally written in English. So it said Yakub. But it talks about how Jacob wrestled with the angel until the coming of the daylight. And he won. And look what it said the angel did. Through the hollow of his thigh outer joint. And most of us, when we see that, we just don't even listen to it. We just picture somebody with their hip messed up hopping. Didn't say it messed with his thigh. It said the hollow of his thigh. Know what the hollow is? The space between his thighs. His genetic organs were messed with. And said, then light came out of darkness. White came out of black. And Farrakhan is the one letting us not be lulled back into deeper sleep than we were before. Yes, he's still telling us about this. You lose sight of that, you lose sight on the world. He's also called John in the Bible. And in the book of Revelation, it shows him out on an island in a vision, watching the making of this race. See, brothers and sisters, I know all of you have been watching on the news what happened to Brother Ben Chavis. Well, you know, the NAACP, I was at their national convention when it was here when Dr. Chavis announced that one of the things that had been discussed in the board meeting was the changing of the name. Well, they have discussed that in every convention since 1964. In 1964, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was speaking at the National Guard Armory in New York. And a lot of the dignitaries from the NAACP branches in that area came.
And he acknowledged them. And he told them that they would do a greater work if they changed their name to the National Association for the Advancement of Black People. All right, now, there were what they call, they label them the Young Turks. A bunch of the young folks in the NAACP start bringing it up. Wherever they meet, every year, they bring that up. Put it on the floor, it would be defeated. Understand? But now, there's method to the madness of the folks who won't change that name. That name is accurate. See, Red Fox wasn't just joking when he said it meant National Association for the Advancement of Certain People. He was serious. But it's for the advancement of colored people, if you know what color is. We used to call ourselves colored people. Guys, when they go dumb enough today, they still call themselves colored people. They just put it down, people of color. The hell is that? Pardon me. What is that? People of color. You're just ashamed to be black. You tried Afro-American, you tried African-American, all kind of stuff. Now, Afrocentric, you don't want to be black. White folks ain't never been bashful about being white. How come you don't want to be black? Now, when you first come into the Nation of Islam, you're given some lessons. One of the questions in one of the lessons asks, who is the colored man? When you first see it, you say, what's me? It's me. He said, no, it's the Caucasian, the white man. Color? How you going to be white and colored at the same time? That puzzled me for a while, but I didn't want to seem stupid as I was, so I didn't ask. So one day, I was in a supermarket, and I went to get a loaf of rye bread. And I saw right next to the rye bread that I was accustomed to buying some loaves of rye bread, and it said seeded. It said seeded? In the world can that be? All the rye bread I ever had was full of seeds. You mean to tell me they add some more seeds to it? So I said, well, I'm going to get one. So I got my usual bread just in case I didn't like that seeded stuff. I got a loaf of my usual, but I got a loaf of the seeded. And let me take this home and check this out. So when I got home, I opened up the seeded one, and I pulled out a slice of bread, took it apart, bit on it, and I discovered there was not a seed in the bread. It was seeded because all of the seeds that were naturally in it had been removed. That's what made it seeded. And I sat down and I started thinking. I said, well, you know, that's not too far off. If you called me up and asked me what had I done today, and I told you I just weeded my garden, you wouldn't think I went out and planted some weeds, but you would know that I went and pulled up all the weeds out of my garden, therefore it was weeded. Is that right? You go to the store when you leave here and look at the olives on the shelf and look at the dates on the shelf. And if you get pitted olives and get pitted dates, you get home and none of them got no pits in them. They remove the pits so they're pitted. You remove the weeds so the place is weeded. Remove the seeds so it is seeded. Remove the color and they are colored. That's why one of the most fascinating studies is language. Because when you go into other languages, you can get some of this shown to you. How do you say white in French? Blanc. How do you say it in Spanish? Blanco. What English word comes from that? Blank. Oh, yeah. Who is this man, Farrakhan? What is he to you? We're going to find out. You'll read in Message to the Black Man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that the white race was grafted out of black people on an island called Pelan that is called Patmos in the Bible. The book of Revelation, you'll find the Isle of Patmos. Now, the Isle of Patmos is off Greece. So back in 1989, I got a book that's on all the shelves. Let's go Greece. They got Let's Go California and Hawaii, Let's Go France, Let's Go South America. They got all these travel books for people who want to travel so that you can know what to look for if you're a tourist. So I got Let's Go Greece, 1989, and it says, revised and updated every year. And that's why a couple of years after I bought this, my brother gave me this book, and I began to teach it. I got a call saying that the new one that came out, I think about 91, didn't have the stuff in it that's in this one. This past Thursday, in preparation for today's lecture, I went to a bookstore and got and read the 1994 version. Don't have none of this in there. Why? If it was valid then, why is it not in the book today? Let's look at what's in here, and maybe we'll get a clue. All right. Just want to do a few excerpts about Patmos, the Isle of Patmos. Until recent centuries, only monks inhabited the island. But its spectacular scenery and enchanting hilltop village, Korah, could not remain secret. I want you to listen at the words. Could not remain secret. When you say something can't be done, the only way you know it can't be done is because you've tried to do it. Somebody's trying to do it, otherwise you would know it couldn't be done. So if they know it couldn't remain a secret, that meant that they had been trying to keep it a secret, but they were unsuccessful. Let me say, brothers and sisters, if you go to old bookstores, which is a good habit, if you happen to run into the 1989 version of Let's Go Greece, grab it. It's a jewel. It's a gem. Because, as I said, you won't find this in the later ones.
But I have, that's why I'm very, very careful of what I put out to the public in the name of my leader. And I've always been that way.
Yes, sir.
Those of you who have known me through the years, you know that I'm not going to get out there. Let me show you, as Brother Minister pointed out, you know, I was well known around here and all across the country, really, but from here, for debating and knocking down reporters and interviewers and all that sort of stuff. I'd go on television and wear them out. Now, after I just about cleaned up the West Coast, even cost a couple of the reporters their jobs, actually. Got fired because they looked so foolish when we got through with them. That's absolute truth. We knew that it was getting serious when I got a call from NBC asking me, would I give an interview to Edwin Newman? I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with him, but he was out of New York, one of the two men that I know of who knew the English language better than anybody that I've ever heard of. Nobody to play with. Now, they got all of these TV stations all up and down the West Coast and all the way across the country in between. But they wanted to bring Edwin Newman out here to interview me. I might be crazy, but I ain't no fool. I'm not going to refuse. All I did was gave some conditions. And the conditions were that Mr. Newman would have to send me all of his questions. And then I would grant him an interview, and he could not ask me anything but the questions that he had submitted. NBC sent me the questions. Like I still got them. This was in March of 1964. Got them right here. And when Mr. Newman came to Shabazz restaurant on 51st and Main, we sat down at the table with the color crew he had brought all the way, because they hadn't really got color on the West Coast too much yet. He brought all the way from New York with him. We sat down, and as he asked me each question exactly as he sent it to me, I answered each question exactly as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had sent me to answer. And that's the way that tape stood. See, like we always say, I might be crazy, but I ain't no fool. When I saw the questions, I knew I didn't have no business with them. The secretary to whom the messenger dictated the answers, she told me about it later. She was amazed herself. She brought the letter to him. He told her to pull up a chair. And as he read each question, he gave her an answer and kept right on pushing. Didn't even hesitate, didn't think about it, didn't go to look up nothing or nothing. He rattled them all. When I got through repeating them to Ed Newman, to this day, not 1/30 seconds have been ever shown of that interview. They spent all that money. However, for years after that, every TV reporter that interviewed me in any city across the country said that their bosses had them to come in and look at that tape before they came to talk to me. But see, the thing is, I didn't have the kind of crazy ego that made me think I could handle this boy. Otherwise, they'd have probably had something to beat us over the head with from now on. That's right. Know your limitations. That's right.
Let us begin at the beginning. So, how can you do that? Well, we'll do it just like the writer in the Bible did it. We just say in the beginning. Because when we examine that, it's not really a clear picture. If you ask someone who studied the Bible, say, when the Bible opens up, what happened in the beginning? What's the very first thing that happened? God created the heaven and earth. Now, that's not true. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth, right? Heaven and earth wasn't the first thing that happened. It said, in the beginning, God. There's the first thing. That is the first thing. Then came the heaven and the earth. So, when we talk about the history of the Nation of Islam, the Nation of Islam is the assemblage of a people into what is called a nation to submit themselves, agree among themselves to submit themselves entirely to the will of God. So, to study the history of the Nation of Islam, you have to begin with what the nation is founded on, which is Islam. And when you study the history of Islam, where do you begin? What is the birth record of said Nation of Islam? Okay? Doesn't say it doesn't have a birth. Doesn't say it was not born. Says it doesn't have a birth record. There's a whole lot of folks right here in New York City don't have birth records. Born out there in the sticks somewhere, didn't get a birth certificate, didn't go to the hospital, and they got no birth record, but you here, ain't you? Can't nobody say you were not born, because they know the only way you got here is that you were born. Therefore, you were born. Record or no record. Well, then why is there not a record? Well, what is Islam? Did Islam start 1,400 years ago, as some of the Arabs refer to Prophet Muhammad as the holy founder, as if he founded a new religion? The Holy Quran does not say that. The Holy Quran says that the religion that Muhammad brought was the same religion that Abraham, Jacob, Jesus, Moses, and all the rest of the prophets had. But why is it that before then, none of them ever named a religion? Abraham never named a religion. Read his history. He never named a religion. Moses never named a religion. Jesus never named a religion. Only Muhammad. When Allah revealed to him that he had perfected the religion for us, only then did he name it. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says you don't trace a religion by its name or by using a calendar. You do it by how old is its precept? How old are the concepts? Islam means entire submission to the will of God. When did submission to the will of God start? When did anything start submitting to the will of God? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad again says, Islam is as old as God himself, and God is the author of it. So when God started, Islam started. Because when God started, he started submitting to his own will, to no other will but his own. Then God submitting to anything? Yes. If he makes a law, he got to be the first law keeper. That's the difference between God and the devil. The devil sets up laws and then he purposely breaks them because he has the right to, because he's the maker of the law. That's why you see police cars running red lights and they ain't going nowhere. You know, speeding down the street. You know, if it's dangerous for me to go 50 in a 20 mile zone, then it's dangerous for him to go 50 in a 20 mile zone. Because he got lights on his car, that don't make it no less dangerous. He can still kill somebody. In fact, they have several times just in the last year here in New York City. Okay? But that's the difference. But when God makes a law, he does not break that law. He is the example. All right. So then, what is the birth record then of God? Can't do it. How long ago was that God created himself? Can't tell. Why can't you tell? Secret? No, don't know. Why don't you know? Because he didn't know. See, you and I come from good stock. When you find some of us who don't know exactly how old we are, that's good. The Creator didn't know exactly how old he was either. Why? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that because when he started the motion to create himself, that set time. Time is motion. Time is nothing but a measure of motion. Every way you measure time, you're measuring the motion of something, the earth, the sun, stars, and so forth. So all time is nothing but a measure of motion. So he set time into play from the beginning. But there was some time elapsed before he set up a mechanism to measure time. And once he set up the mechanism to measure time, he could not measure it backwards because there was no mechanism before then. So he could only begin then, and so therefore time began then. This is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that yes, the black man had a beginning, but it was so long ago that time itself has erased it. Time erased. When? Because there was no mechanism to time it until God set it up. Therefore, everything that happened before this, it happened, but you can't measure how long. You don't know whether it was an hour, a day, or 50 trillion years, because there was no way to measure it up until he set up the measure. That's why we don't have a birth record. Our record only goes back to the beginning of time, and we existed before the beginning of time. Okay.
Now, on the matter of study, besides the lessons, just like any course that you take, there's certain basic textbooks that you ought to have. And then, besides the basic textbooks, your professor always tells you, sometimes they give you a list of outside reading that is related that will help you in the course. Okay? But now, how many of you do not have a Holy Quran? Okay. That is number one. Okay. That's number one. And we understand that some of you have tried to get them, and we haven't had them. because I was in Chicago and we sent a box here. By the time I got to New York, the box was sold, so I know how they go. So we've ordered some more, and we're going to keep them on hand. But that is the first book. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that Master Farad Muhammad gave him a list of 104 books to read. And of the 104 books, the best one he gave him was the Holy Quran. Then that tells us that's our number one book. So you should have the Muhammad Ali version. That should be the first one you get. That's the one that we handle. The Muhammad Ali version. The reason we handle that is the first one that Master Farad Muhammad gave to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, we know that the Rabata does not accept that. We ain't worshiping the Rabata. We want to clear that up. Those of you just coming in, you're not coming in to be no Arab. You're coming in to be a Muslim. There's a difference. The largest Muslim country on earth don't have an Arab in it. Did you know that? Indonesia is the largest Muslim country on earth, and they are not Arabs. Okay? So Muslim and Arab are not synonymous. We ain't going to be wearing no headdresses and going through a lot of foolishness, okay? All right? I want you to understand that. All right. We don't care what they accept. Our God recommended that as the best one. He later gave the Honorable Elijah Muhammad a Yusuf Ali. Okay? Now, aside from those two, it's good to get others. It's good to get others and study them and compare them. You know? So when your money allows and when you run into some others, fine. Get those. The more of them you study, it's just like Bibles. The more of them you study, the better understanding you will get. Okay? Now, as I said, the Muhammad Ali is the primary one. Yusuf Ali is the secondary one. And I've got a Yusuf Ali. I gave away all of the rest of them that I had because I don't like the way that most of them read. It's a funny thing. But, yeah, like it's hard for me to read a Holy Quran that doesn't have Allah's name anywhere in it, And most of you Yusuf Ali, there's no God but God, and, all that kind of stuff, So I took for granted all of them were written like that. And it's just to show you how Allah works. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad went to Pakistan. When he got back, he told me that he had some Holy Qurans coming in. And he said that when they came in, his secretary would call me. And he said, don't wait until I had something to do in Chicago. When I got that call, come get that book. If I didn't come for no other reason. And it happened, that's the way it was. When I got the call, I didn't have any reason to go to Chicago. So what I did was, I went and caught the plane. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I went and caught the plane, as per his instructions. I got to O'Hare, I rented a car. I drove up to his house, and I rang the doorbell. Captain Sharif, the Supreme Captain of the Nation of Islam, opened the door for me. And he told me, well, come on in and sit down. He said, the messenger's in a meeting. I said, I didn't come to see the messenger. I came for my book. He said, oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. I stood in the hallway. I saw the Honorable Elijah Muhammad sitting in his dining room in a meeting with some Arabs. Man. And, I think he kind of looked around and nodded, but that's as far as that, and didn't even exchange words. Captain Sharif came in with my Holy Quran. I thanked him, gave him the greeting. I went and got in my car, went back to the airport, turned it in, got on the plane, and went back to Los Angeles. And still was too dumb to see this had to be an awful important book for this man to have me to do that. Still, I never read the book. I never opened the book. It's in the early 60s. I never opened the book. So, it must have been last year, or maybe earlier this year. No, it was last year. I had kept the book. The book had been stored in somebody's wet basement. It was in 2 boxes. The boxes had rotted all off, but the book was in perfect shape. Didn't even get damp, you understand? I still ain't opened the book. Brother Edward Muhammad in Atlanta came to my house one night and told me he wanted to check something out and asked me, did I have a Yusuf Ali version of the Quran? I told him I got one. I got rid of all of the rest of them. And the only reason I kept this one is because the Lord gave it to me. So I went back and got it, and he opened it up, and he laughed, because sure enough, when he opened it, it cracked. You know how a new book, it's 20 years later, he opened up the book, and the book cracked. So he really laughed. And I had told him why I didn't like Yusuf Ali. He said, Brother Allah, have you ever looked in this book at all? I said, no. He said, take a look at it. And I looked in it. And it starts off in the name of Allah. I said, God. And so, so for that reason, although I love the Muhammad Ali version, and that's the one I study most of the time, I know I've got to study this one, this particular one. I haven't seen another one like it. And the others I had were in 2 volumes and everything. It's in 1 big volume. And I still have not really stopped going through. I've looked through it, but I haven't really studied it. So I know I've got to study that particular book, because it was given to me for a particular purpose, and I don't know what yet. But those 2 books, those 2 Qurans, make sure that you have those, okay? Have yourself at least 1 good Bible. Now, my recommendation is that the first Bible that you get should be a King James Version. And the reason is because most of our people, that's the Bible that they deal with. And that's where we want to operate. There's no sense in you getting a New World Translation or something from the Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's only 1% of our people or something. That wouldn't make sense. It's good to get that later on when you want to deal with the JWs. I mean, that's fine. You understand? But to deal with the mass of our people, let's go where the mass of our people are. And as I've always said, if a man dies and you bury him in New York, you can dig all over Philadelphia. You'll never get him. You've got to go and dig where he's buried. Okay? So get you a King James. And then once you get a King James, if you want to be more scholarly and really understand more, try to get as many different versions as you can. The Layman's Parallel Bible that most of you have seen me teach with most of the time is excellent, because it has 4 versions laid right across the page so that you can compare them as you go. And the King James is one. It begins with the King James. It's got the 4 most popular versions, but that's something for you further down the pipe. Okay, but make sure that you have a good Holy Quran, at least the Muhammad Ali, if possible, Muhammad Ali and Yusuf Ali. Read the footnotes. I know some crazy folks. Really, been in Islam a long time and will tell you don't read the footnotes. Yeah, it's crazy. No, read the footnotes, read the index, read the introduction, the preface, everything in there, because it's information. Doesn't mean, in fact, as I say, you don't have to agree with everything in the footnotes. That's their interpretation. That's why it's good to get different versions. And you see that one man's footnotes will not agree with the other man's footnotes, and understand why they interpret them differently. Why does Muhammad Ali say, translate Zurqa in chapter 20, verse 102, on the day when the trumpet is blown, we shall gather the guilty blue eyes. And why does Yusuf Ali say we shall gather the guilty blear eyed? Read their explanations. Don't just argue one way or the other and don't have knowledge. Read both of their explanations. Why do you say it's this and why do you say it means that? Okay. Message to the black man is a necessity. The Fall of America, How to Eat to Live, volumes 1 and 2. Now, there's a book that's out of print that we've got to somehow get back in print because it's very key. Many of the early study guides refer to the book because it's so key to our study, and yet most of us don't. How many people in here have a copy of This Is the One? See, majority don't have it. See, that's a book we've got to really get printed. We've got to talk to the printer. I saw the printer again a couple of weeks ago. He's still alive, but we got it. That's a book we've got to get back in the press. Okay, and now there's one book that we're going to order here in New York, and we want How many in here have the book, Is It Possible That the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is Still Physically Alive? Okay, good. Most of you have that. All right, we want to get that book. We want to make sure everybody has that book, and then we want to get that book out in the public. We want to really distribute that book. We want to challenge. You know, brothers and sisters, the minister indicated something at the formation of the parliament that's very key. Something that we brought up a year ago in Phoenix. And those of you who've been around here for a while, you've heard me mention that one point, if you notice, all of the hell that Minister Farrakhan has given the Jews, they have never attacked him on his belief that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is alive. Now, don't you know that if they thought they had something to fight with, they would love to jump up on international television and say, look at here, this Farrakhan guy thinks Elijah Muhammad's alive. He's alive. They got to be scared the fact that they don't do it. They know that's what he teaches. They have printed it in their papers, but they don't repeat it too often. Hey? They don't want to challenge it. Well, hey, you've been out on them streets. You got the edge, press it. We don't sit back and say, well, see, he don't challenge me. No, let's put it out there. Let's rub his nose in it. So, yeah, he lives. He's alive. Oh, yeah. Ain't gonna let him slide away that easy and hide. No, we want to put it out there. This is also a test for us. The reason he brought it up, because some of us are weak in our belief. And we don't understand that that's the difference in our salvation and our lack of salvation, is that one thing. Let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. Don't you know that if you read the Gospels and you see those sorry disciples of Jesus, and they were sorry, weren't they? You ain't never seen them do a lick of nothing long as Jesus was with them, did you? They were weak. That's the one thing that was wrong with all of them, their faith. If you notice how often Jesus would say to them, oh, ye of little faith. Now these his disciples, he keep telling them that they ain't got no faith. He went out and walked the water, told Peter, come on. Peter got out there and started sinking. He said, oh, ye of little faith. Didn't nothing make him fail but his lack of faith. But they never had no faith. And they never got any job done. Show me anywhere in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John where any one of the disciples, he didn't have just 12. Oh no, read it carefully. He had a bunch of them. When he started telling them what the job was, that's when he wound up with 12. Oh yeah. The Bible says many walked away and never walked with him again. When he sat telling them what they had to go through to inherit this kingdom, got split. They said, hey baby, we've been friends through thick and thin. You getting pretty thick. We got to thin out. Man. Right. At one point, he had 120. They numbered 120. At one point, you remember, he sent 70 of them out. He had a whole bunch of disciples. But check this. In Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, name one disciple that ever made one convert. They never raised nobody. All of them put together, like I said, they sent 70 out and 70 came back. Some of them cats had to be married. That means none of them even brought their wives back. They didn't raise nobody. But look at this. From the book of Acts on, you saw these fiery disciples, these apostles of God, going all over Asia. And everywhere they go, they were raising up followers, bringing them to the banner of Jesus Christ. What was the difference? What happened to them that they now had the zeal and the fire to raise the dead that they couldn't do it before? Because everything about Jesus, they could prove it. They saw him with their own eyes healing the sick and opening the blind's eyes. They saw that. They didn't have to have no faith in nothing. Everything they did, they could do on knowledge. So that means their faith was never developed. They never had to develop any faith in him because they could prove everything. It was right before their eyes. But after the crucifixion, their article of faith was, he lives. That was the first time they had ever had an article of faith to unite on. And since all of them united on that one article of faith, belief that the Christ was risen, they had the religious zeal to put it into the hearts of other people and raise the dead. We never had an article of faith. In Islam, we were the baddest debaters that the world ever saw, because we could lay it on the table and we could prove it mathematically in no limit of time. Couldn't we? Y'all used to see us do that thing. We would rip anybody apart that challenged this teaching. And we could lay it out there. We could run them in the ground with every kind of proof in the world. And there was nothing that we could stand on and just say, no, we can't prove it, but I'll die believing it. Therefore, we didn't have that missionary zeal. The people that we were supposed to be raising up, we were raising up people just like us, weak in faith. So we built a whole nation of people with no faith. Here we are, supposed to be a people going to God with no faith. So today we have an article of faith. And since that is the difference, that is the key, the difference between success and failure as proven by the Bible, then we know that we need to nurture that more than we nurture anything else. Okay? And this is why I'm saying we need to press that thing. We need to press it for us. You know, you ever been in one of them, you about to have a rumble, and you scared, but you talk some courage into yourself. You talk so bad, you get brave for real. You understand? That's right. And especially when you see the enemy start flinching, you say, hey, I really am kind of mean. Hey, you pumping it into yourself. But this is how we have got to nurture. We say we believe it, then we get back and we get our little down and say, well, even if I don't believe Elijah Muhammad is dead, I still believe Mr. Farrakhan. No. That's right, it ain't gonna work at all. As Mr. Farrakhan pointed out, if I don't believe Elijah Muhammad wasn't alive, he couldn't do what he's doing. Couldn't no dead man back up Minister Farrakhan and have him doing the things he's doing. Don't you know that? No way in the world we could be in the name of a dead man trying to get this thing going with the heavy enemies. What dead man could hold them off of our heads? No. He lives. They know he lives. That's why they keep their mouths shut. We want to force them. Force them. Put a chip on our shoulder. Knock it off. That's right. We want to do that. But see, they want to deal with everything else. Let's make them deal with that. Let's make them deal with the physical aliveness of our Christ. Tell them, yeah, he beat death. The Bible said he beat it. The Holy Quran said he beat it. Except the Holy Quran ain't quite as spooky as the Bible's interpretation. Holy Quran kind of tell you how he beat it. Understand? Then the history of Muhammad, especially the one by Washington Irving, tells you how, again, gives you a little key about how he does it. You know? But he beat death. He didn't die. That's the difference. In the Christian teaching, they teach you that Jesus died and rose again. That's a picture of us who died and are now rising again. But in the Holy Quran, it said he was made to appear dead to the Jews. To the Jews. Because they're the ones wanting him dead. Hey? All right. So that is one textbook I want you to study. Now, we're getting another one in that most of you are aware of. It's ready now, and we're sending for it this week. That is a companion piece, in my opinion, to that particular book. And that's the one, Christ Was Not a Jew. Yeah, they're printed up. I asked you, you wanted them. You said yes, so we had them printed up. And we don't know how soon they'll be here, but we're going to send for them this week. And they'll get them in here as soon as possible. But reading that, and Is It Possible by Brother Jabril, I mean, you really ought to get a picture, I think, of exactly where our Lord is. Well, not physically where, geographically where. That doesn't make any difference. But when I say where he is, here as opposed to in a grave somewhere. And what the importance is to the Jews. Since the Holy Quran said it was to the Jews that he had to appear dead. And here we are battling the Jews today. Okay? Those two books together, I think, will give you some insight on it. And there are various other books as we go along on the outside that we will be dealing with. But those are your basic textbooks along with your lessons. Okay? Now, so you begin to study. There's more to Islam than study and belief. In fact, your Islam doesn't begin until you have studied and gotten the understanding and developed the belief to do something. When you make the move, that's Islam. See, even in the definition of terms, see, Islam is entire submission to the will of Allah. A Muslim is one who submits to the will of Allah. Both of those talk about something you do. Neither one of those talks about something you believe, although you must believe something to do that. Neither one of those talks about something. The religion and those adherents of the religion are described by action. You begin by doing something. Okay? All right.
Listen at the language. It's the language that the God uses. Now, you may say, hey, he talks funny. He ain't talk funny. He knows all the languages. Some of you wise scientists may say, well, I don't know. I remember when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that he spoke 16 languages. How many languages you think there are? Most of the things you think are languages are nothing but dialects of other language. Hebrew is not a language. Hebrew is nothing but an Arabic dialect. That's why when I first came in the nation, I wanted to take Arabic. I went to the Berlitz School, which is your biggest language school in the world. I went to the Berlitz School and signed up, and the man that was going to be my instructor was the chairman of the Hebrew department at UCLA. Because he knew Arabic, therefore he could teach Hebrew. It's nothing but a dialect. Aramaic is a dialect. You know, you learn one Romance language, and you can speak and converse with people that speak them all. You speak Italian, you can speak French, you can speak Spanish, you can speak it all. Portuguese, because they are dialects of one language. They have the 16. When you say God speaks 16 languages, he speaks every language known. Because he speaks the languages and all the dialects.
But I have, that's why I'm very, very careful of what I put out to the public in the name of my leader. And I've always been that way. Yes, sir. Those of you who have known me through the years, you know that I'm not going to get out there. Let me show you, as Brother Minister pointed out, you know, I was well known around here and all across the country, really, but from here, for debating and knocking down reporters and interviewers and all that sort of stuff. I'd go on television and wear them out. Now, after I just about cleaned up the West Coast, even cost a couple of the reporters their jobs, actually. Got fired because they looked so foolish when we got through with them. That's absolute truth. We knew that it was getting serious when I got a call from NBC asking me, would I give an interview to Edwin Newman? I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with him, but he was out of New York, one of the two men that I know of who knew the English language better than anybody that I've ever heard of. Nobody to play with. Now, they got all of these TV stations all up and down the West Coast and all the way across the country in between. But they wanted to bring Edwin Newman out here to interview me. I might be crazy, but I ain't no fool. I'm not going to refuse. All I did was gave some conditions. And the conditions were that Mr. Newman would have to send me all of his questions. And then I would grant him an interview, and he could not ask me anything but the questions that he had submitted. NBC sent me the questions, like I still got them. This was in March of 1964. Got them right here. And when Mr. Newman came to Shabazz restaurant on 51st and Main, we sat down at the table with the color crew he had brought all the way, because they hadn't really got color on the West Coast too much yet. He brought all the way from New York with him. We sat down, and as he asked me each question exactly as he sent it to me, I answered each question exactly as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had sent me to answer. And that's the way that tape stood. See, like we always say, I might be crazy, but I ain't no fool. When I saw the questions, I knew I didn't have no business with them. The secretary to whom the messenger dictated the answers, she told me about it later. She was amazed herself. She brought the letter to him. He told her to pull up a chair. And as he read each question, he gave her an answer and kept right on pushing. Didn't even hesitate, didn't think about it, didn't go to look up nothing or nothing. He rattled them all. When I got through repeating them to Ed Newman, to this day, not 1/30 seconds have been ever shown of that interview. They spent all that money. However, for years after that, every TV reporter that interviewed me in any city across the country said that their bosses had them to come in and look at that tape before they came to talk to me. But see, the thing is, I didn't have the kind of crazy ego that made me think I could handle this boy. Otherwise, they'd have probably had something to beat us over the head with from now on. That's right. Know your limitations. That's right.
Let's go back to square one. Bible says, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. You can't get back no further than that, can you? Let's begin at the beginning. See, you're going all the way back there and see what we're supposed to be doing? That's right. Because we'd done it right the first time, we wouldn't be in the trouble we're in now. Right. So we got to keep on doing it till we get it right. Yes, so let's examine where we missed the boat before. It said that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void. Some of the Bible translators said formless and empty. That's not true. The word void used in that sense did not mean empty. Can we prove it? Yeah, by the next verse. It said that the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. If it was empty, what was water doing there? Not what was the water on, the water itself meant it couldn't have been empty. We have got to become students of the Scripture and not students of those interpreters of the Scripture. We got to go in and find out what they all are saying and go back and learn a little bit about the Greek and the Hebrew and all of that and get in there and find out how these folks twisted the truth into a lie. Yes, sir. All right. Now, it goes on to talk about how God made all of the sun, the moon, the stars, how he separated the land from the land, the waters from the water, how he made all of the beasts and the birds and the fish and all that stuff. But it wasn't complete. He had a problem. There was a problem after everything was done. The book says there was not a man to till the soil. Everything else, all the beauty and the greatness of God's creation couldn't move. Couldn't no life be produced because there was no man. To do what, the book says? To till the soil. What does till mean? Cultivate. Is that right? Yes, sir. Cultivate. All right. Now, we're not going back all those trillions of years and deal with that just because it's a nice story.
Because what will happen is we get to arguing about was it 6,000 years and how come the million-year-old man came about. We don't have to get into that food. Let's look at the principle in it. Without form. That's like when you were in biology and they taught you of the paramecium, which had a definite form, looked like a shoe sole, didn't it? Then they showed you an amoeba, formless. Change form from one time to another. Just shift. You're looking in the microscope and it's changing right before your eyes. Formless, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's apply that to a people who are formless. Drift from one thing to another. Go from the me generation to the we generation, from the beat generation to the hippie generation. Just from one thing into another. Into free love, into prohibition, into alcohol, into drugs, into all kinds of drugs, into abortion clinics. Just don't know what to do with themselves.
Right.
Just floating free, whatever else you can come up with. Not satisfied to sniff cocaine like it is. Let's freebase it a while. That ain't good enough. Let's shoot it for a while.
Right.
So I give you methadone to get you off heroin. I told them that when they introduced methadone, I wasn't even in New York City. I'm down in Georgia. I told them, I said, I give them 30 days, and I'll bet you can go to Harlem and buy some methadone on the street. Sure enough,
Yes, sir.
they're selling methadone, ain't they?
Yes, sir.
You know, I mean, off into everything. Without form. And void. Without form, disorganized. Totally in disarray. And void. What do we mean, void? Not empty. God told the man when he made the man to do what? Be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. You look up this word in the dictionary, you'll find that plenish comes from the word plenare, which means to fill. Re is a prefix meaning again.
That's right.
If it ain't never been filled before, how you gonna fill it again? Okay? No. The word void, in that instance, looking at the principle of it and applying it to what we're about today, means the same as when you void a check in your checkbook. You don't void a check by emptying it, erasing the printing on there. In fact, when you void it, you got more writing on there than you had before you voided it. But when you void that check, you're saying that check has no more value. The check has no more use. It means that what the check was originally intended for, the check is incapable of doing. Praise is due to Allah. All right. If the earth was uncultivated, couldn't make progress because there was no man to till it, to cultivate it. You're talking about a wildlife. Which is why, those of you who are familiar with the lessons of the Nation of Islam, you notice that Master Farrakhan Muhammad refers to this country as the wilderness of North America. And you look around and you say, with all these skyscrapers and these trains running and planes flying, what do you mean a wilderness? A wilderness. What's the difference between a wilderness and an orchard? Now you can go out in the wilderness and you'll find peach trees and apple trees, same trees growing, don't you? But how are they growing? Wow, all over here. When you see an orchard, you can stand down and look between the rows, you see a straight line. You stand over this way, you see a straight line. Same tree, bearing the same apples, the same peaches, but they're doing it in an organized fashion. When you go in the wilderness, you have to go over here and pick a few peaches. Run over there and pick a few peaches. But when you get in an orchard, all you have to do is go down the line. Get what you need, right? Okay. Now, actually, in the story of Genesis, it's talking about two different creations. That's why we know that we're living in the second creation. If you notice in the first creation, the first book of Genesis, it runs down the creation. Now, you and I have read it and thought the second chapter of Genesis was repeating itself. Because you read it and it tells about God creating everything and all that. Then you go into the second chapter, it talks about God creating everything. But let me tell you something. Go back and read it again. It's describing one creation and then another creation. How do we know? Very easy. In the first chapter of Genesis, in the first creation, God made everything else. On the third day, he made the vegetation. All the herbs, the plants, and everything were made on the third. It said the morning and the evening were the third day after he had all of the vegetation planted. Then he went on the fourth day and the fifth day. He made the man on the sixth day. Right?
Yes, sir.
Read the second chapter and see if that's not a different creation. In that creation, he made everything else, and there would not be anything growing. It said, not an herb grew. Didn't a plant spring up out of the earth till he made the man. You see that? Said he hadn't made it rain and he hadn't made a man. Therefore, nothing grew. He made the man and there wasn't a plant. That can't be the same creation. The first creation, when the man came, that made man who came into that creation didn't make nothing. He found everything there made for him. He was destined to become the master over it for a time, but only by the permission of God, because he had no hand in the creation of it. But look at the second one. God didn't plant the garden till he first made the man. Then by this man being a part of cultivating the soil and planting the garden, he had a right to master it from now on because he helped in the creation of it. But we're talking about a man. We're talking about now, brothers and sisters. We ain't talking history. We're talking current events. Why would nothing grow? They had all the beasts, and you know when you get ready to grow something, you go out there and get some of the beast droppings, and that's the best fertilizer in the world, and it'll make the stuff grow on it. That's right. All those beasts out there fertilizing all that soil, and would nothing grow. It had everything except the man. But what are we talking about, and how do we apply it to today? You and I living in a time when all the ingredients for happiness, peace, freedom, justice, equality, brotherhood, and all that is here. But you know what was missing? You know what? Look at this society. Just look at this society. See what it's based on and see what the missing ingredient is. The missing ingredient is humanity. The missing ingredient is love, brotherhood, loyalty, not greed, envy, and jealousy. That's the missing ingredient. And there needed to be a man with that humanity in his heart. This government and all the rest of the governments on this earth have all the brains to construct this brilliant thing that you see and that you're living in. But they don't have the heart to make it work for the majority of human beings. Praise is due to Allah. Therefore, they are classified as uncivilized. Uncivilized. Wow. Without form. Okay? Wow. Beast-like. Okay? Now, this book hasn't been tampered with like the Bible. You don't find no versions of the Quran. You find translations of the Quran. But every Quran, no matter who translated, when you look over here on the right side, you find the same Arabic from one Quran to the other. There's been no change in 1,400 years. The Mule version and the Sale version and the Pickthall version and the Muhammad Ali version and the Yusuf Ali version, all of the Arabic is exactly the same. They ain't changed nothing. It's just how they translate and interpret it, but the book is still the same. But now let's get after this a little bit closer, just again to show you. You have to be very, very careful with folks with preconceived notions and who get wrapped up in tradition. You know, the Bible and the Holy Quran, with Jesus in the Bible and Muhammad in the Holy Quran, both condemn folks who get so hung up on tradition till they refuse to accept the truth when it hits them. If it conflicts with tradition, what they used to, well, my mama was doing this, my dad was doing this, you know. I grew up eating pork chops. You know, anybody who's a slave to tradition is just a slave.
So now here's this great scholar, Maulana Muhammad Ali, who translated the Holy Quran, and according to the Abdul Allah Muhammad, and according to the great Imam of Cairo and the Council of Imams, this is the best English translation there is. The second best one is Yusuf Ali. Okay? But now here's this great scholar, Muhammad Ali. Let me reread this to you and then show you something. And who believe in that which has been revealed to thee, and that which was revealed before thee, and of the hereafter they are sure. He has a little footnote about the hereafter. And if you read the footnote down there in the Holy Quran, Muhammad Ali is admitting that he changed the word. That word that he translated as hereafter, he admits, does not mean hereafter. Now, ain't that something? But see, he's such an honest man, such a noble man, he couldn't just do it. His conscience whipped him. So even though he changed it, he had to confess down the bottom. And then he tries to explain it away by saying that the reason he changed it is because it conflicts with what they believe. They believe and they teach, and one of the conflicts that they have always had with us is that Muhammad ibn Abdullah of Arabia received the last revelation from God. Muhammad Ali admits in this footnote that the term that he said was hereafter does not mean hereafter, but that the correct reading of this verse should be, and it makes more sense this way, and who believe in that which has been revealed to thee, and that which was revealed before thee, and that which will be revealed after thee. It's dangerous to believe something so strong till you use that old saying they got on these little cards in the stationery stores, I've already made up my mind, don't confuse me with the facts. I mean, that's dangerous. That is so dangerous. You know? I mean, this man knows the truth and can't accept it. Cold, ain't it? Tells you down here exactly what the word means. That which will be revealed after thee. He said that's what the word, but we can't accept it in that context because, of course, we know that Muhammad received the last word. No, what you mean you know? That ain't what the man says. That's what God says in the book. That's God talking. He calling God a liar there. That's God who is saying what we must believe in order to be Muslim. So he said, well, God said that, but that ain't what he meant. What you mean that ain't what he meant? That's what he said. How you gonna out-interpret God on God's words? Like I say, I'm not down the brother. I love the brother. I love him for what he did. And had it not been for him, the job would not have been as easy for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to get us to really understand Islam. So I'm not knocking it, but you'll find all throughout his translation and all other translations of the Holy Quran, where anytime it conflicts with their, just like if you read his book, he has a great book out. In fact, some of the quotes that I gave you, this particular minister's lesson was where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad took the prologue, the introduction to a book by Maulana Muhammad Ali called The Religion of Islam. And he went into it, and he wrote what he agreed with and took the spookiness out of the rest of it, because Muhammad Ali, in translating the Holy Quran, Muhammad Ali realized the reality of God. He spends 3 or 4 pages trying to show you that God ain't real. He also realized that angels were not spirits. So he spends another page or page and a half trying to explain to you the angels. Now, it doesn't mean that when it says that these angels are men and that they walk around. It don't mean that. It says that, though, Maulana. Maulana is a great title. It means the highest one in learning, you know. I mean, Maulana, it says that. What you mean it don't mean that? Praise is due to Allah.
But those of you who were at the banquet on Saturday night and heard the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, he talked about a new education, a different education that would put us in a different condition and a different position than the old education has put us in. And the very basis and foundation, as he pointed out, was a different mathematics. Since mathematics is the foundation of everything, you can't have the same old tired mathematics and come up with a new education, which means you can't come up with a new position or a new condition. So it begins with math. So when I use nothing from nothing, we're going to deal with what that produces in the new mathematics and not in the old mathematics of this old, tired world. The mathematics that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is a direct representative of is so different from anything we've ever seen, yet the minute that we encounter it, we know it's right. In Muhammad University of Islam, where all of you with any children should have your children, believe me, that's where they need to be. Because what they're learning in the other schools is on its way out to be replaced, and we are supplying the replacement. Let me illustrate to you how powerful the mathematics that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan teaches is. I was speaking to some students at one of the most prestigious colleges, not only in the United States, but in the world. And there was a bunch of mathematics majors there, all of them white. And we got so tired, or they got so tired up, I was still straight, but they got so tired up into our mathematics discussions until they sent for the chairman of the mathematics department with his PhD in this world's mathematics. So I welcomed him, thanked him, and then I asked him in front of all of his students, was he familiar with the Great Pyramid of Egypt? Out of all the pyramids, there's one they call the Great Pyramid. He said, yes. I said, well, as a mathematician, I know you've studied it well. He said, of course. So I asked him, I said, sir, what is the inch that we use to measure based on? He said, it's based on the pyramid inch. I said, all right. I said, sir, if you took a yardstick or a ruler, such as we use in your school, and you went around the base of the pyramid and measured it, would it come out even? He said, no. I said, why is that, sir? He said, because we do not know the exact length of a pyramid inch. So the inches that we use to build these great skyscrapers and all that sort of stuff is based on an approximation. There's no exact knowledge that goes into the building of them. Think about that. So I said, sir, since you have studied the pyramid, and since they are the ones who set the tone for the inch and you've never been able to come up to it, let me ask you a few more questions, a couple of more questions about the pyramid. You know how it's built. Could the builder of the pyramid have built it without knowing the exact value of pi? Pi, the Greek letter that they use, that's supposed to be 3.146 on into infinity, and into infinity because they say they don't know the exact value. I asked him, could that pyramid have been built without the builder knowing the exact value of pi? He said it could not have been built. I said, sir, you taught us in mathematics that it's impossible in geometry through a formula to square a circle. He said, that's correct. I said, you also taught us that it's impossible to trisect an angle. He said, that's correct. I said, tell me, sir, could the builder of that pyramid have built that pyramid without being able to square a circle or trisect an angle? He said he never would have got it built. Here's a man admitting before his entire student body, he's the master, no, the PhD in mathematics as they know it, and he's admitting that here's somebody over in Egypt that built something using a mathematics he had no comprehension of. Not only didn't know it, but he knew that he didn't know it. Had to admit he didn't know it. What kind of math was that? That's a math that is contained in a library in Egypt that has 60,000 books, 60,000 volumes of nothing but mathematics and science. Now, those white Arabs that conquered Egypt, they don't know where it is, so there ain't no sense even asking them about it. They don't know nothing about it. When they conquered Egypt and took over from the black people who they call Nubians and moved them out and subjected them, then all that was hidden from them, but it's there. Now, this whole civilization was put together by 60,000 people 6,000 years ago. There were 60,000 people who got together and put together this civilization that we live in right now. But out of the 60,000, only one of them had the complete plan in his head. There were 59,999 who could do nothing but follow his lead, and because they did that faithfully, you have this great, powerful civilization today. Well, by the same token, or by a similar token, it's no coincidence that of those 60,000 books on science and mathematics that's there in the library in Cairo, I'll even narrow it down a little further than that, everything that this civilization, this white man knows about mathematics and science is contained in the first volume. There are 59,999 books of mathematics and science he has no knowledge of. That's why he can't explain how the pyramid was done and all of that. You know, they used to teach us all kind of stuff, and those of you who've been around long enough, you know they change every few years. After you uncover one lie, then they come up with another one. I have watched the Ten Commandments. Have you seen that movie on television? I watched it over and over. Every time it comes on, I get a chance, I look at it again. I was at the premiere. At that time, I was a theater editor of a newspaper when it came out. So I went to the premiere and I saw it. And it so enthralled me that every time I catch it, I watch it again. Because I can remember years of studying about the pyramid, and the big question was, how did those stones, those big old stones, get out there in the middle of a desert where there were no stones for many, many miles around? And they came up with all kinds of theories. You know, that the slaves dragged them across, which you knew was crazy. Some even tried, by the time I got to high school, they were even theorizing that they had a method of taking the sand and making the stones, until somebody pointed out, first of all, that's not sandstone. It's more like granite. So they obviously did not make it out of the sand that was there. So finally, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in one of his articles, answered their question. He said they cut the stones where they were and moved them there by hydraulics. Cecil B. DeMille, when he made his movie, showed for the first time publicly the same thing. He showed them taking those stones, using water, and making a hydraulic system to move those stones along. Just to show you that our stuff is so superior, that's where they have to get it from. Now, why did I know that this mathematician had studied the pyramid? Why do you think the pyramid's on the dollar bill? The Great Pyramid, as it's called, listen carefully. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan has pointed out to us that where that pyramid stands is the exact center of the landmass of the planet Earth. There's a star that appears in the sky every 50,000 years. And when that star comes, if you walk in the pyramid, there's a shaft that goes straight up to the point. And if you look up there, you can look directly at that star. It hovers in that exact spot once every 50,000 years. That's how exact the placement of the pyramid is. Now, in order to know where the center of something is, you have to know its size, don't you? And according to mathematics, particularly according to geometry and trigonometry, if something's too big for you to physically measure, the only way that you can calculate its size, you got to first know its shape. Is that right? You have a different formula for finding the area of a triangle than you do a rectangle, and a different way of finding the area of a circle. That's in plane geometry. Then when you get into solid geometry, you don't find how big a sphere is, a solid sphere, the same way you do a circle. You have a different way of doing it, a different formula altogether. So in order for these Egyptians to be able to determine the exact center of the land mass of the earth, they couldn't believe, like them dumb crackers were telling Columbus, you're going to fall off the edge. They couldn't believe the earth was flat. They had to already know that the earth was round or spherical. In fact, the term, the name, geometry, comes from the word geos, meaning earth, and meter, meaning measure. Geometry, the science of geometry, is based upon the measurements of the earth. Now, when you and I went to school, some of you still going, but if you are, they're teaching you geometry. The geometry they're teaching you, no matter what school you go to, they're teaching you what they tell you is Euclidean geometry. Is that correct? Now, the word Euclidean is an adjective. That's a word that's used to describe something in order to distinguish it from something else that you might get it mixed up with if they didn't. So to say Euclidean geometry means that's to keep you from getting it confused with another geometry that is non-Euclidean. But why is it that you only know Euclidean geometry? If there is another geometry, and there has to be, why is it that you can't go to a school and learn it? I looked in the Encyclopedia Britannica, and the one that I looked in, I wanted to make sure that I was on sound ground from white scholars' standpoint, is the one that all the scholars agree is the greatest version of Encyclopedia Britannica that's ever been printed. Okay? It's the 9th edition, printed in 1890. A lot of stuff in it they've snatched out since then. That's why it's still the greatest. Britannica says Euclid was a discoverer and a compiler. Well, now, they would have us believe that Euclid is the father of geometry. If you discover something, that means it was already there. If you compile something, that means you just pulled together something that already existed. So if Euclid was a discoverer and a compiler, he didn't create nothing. Now, it goes on to say, as the introduction of geometry into Greece is by common consent attributed to Thales. You ever heard of Thales? Oh, they didn't tell you about Thales. Now listen to this. He's the one that introduced them to it, but they tell us about Euclid. So all are agreed that to Pythagoras is due the honor of having raised mathematics to the rank of a science. Now look at this. We're learning Euclidean geometry. They're saying that it was introduced by Thales of Miletus, you can look it up. It was introduced by Thales and then perfected by Pythagoras, but they don't teach us about nobody but Euclid, who learned from Pythagoras, who learned from Thales. And who did Thales learn from? Praise is due to Allah. Yes. Pythagoras, I want to show you a parallel now. We'll bring this right up to date. Pythagoras took geometry. This is what they mean they raised it to the level of a science. He didn't just look at it as a bunch of numbers, but they called it number. They didn't call it mathematics at that time. They called it number. But Pythagoras examined that thing and he said, number is great and perfect and omnipotent, and the principle and guide of divine and human life. This is what he thought of mathematics. All right, let's hear what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said. Islam is mathematics, and mathematics is Islam, and can be proven in no limited time. Sound like they're kind of saying the same thing. If Islam is entire submission to the will of God, and mathematics is Islam, and Islam is mathematics, then submission to God must depend upon a mathematical formula. The wisdom of God has to have a mathematical base. Pythagoras even dealt with the power of numbers and where it got its power. I want to show you again, comparison. He pointed out that there are two kinds of numbers, odd and even. And because they are opposite, the interrelation of them is what gives numbers their power. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan talks about the power in the universe And he speaks of it as a collection of dialectics. Have you ever heard him say that? Dialectics. That's what makes up everything. You got right and left, good and evil, masculine and feminine, limited and unlimited, straight and crooked, rest and motion, light and darkness, singular and plural. Everything has an opposite. Now, I want to tell you what happened to this teaching of Pythagoras. Now remember, I just got through drawing a parallel. What Pythagoras was saying in his crude way, what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is breaking down to us in a very refined and detailed way. They didn't do anything to Pythagoras. But when Pythagoras got old and retired to his home, the Greek government went every place that they knew people were gathering and learning Pythagoras' teaching. They not only killed the people, they tore down the building. Even if it was just a house with a family, if they were in there talking Pythagoras talk, the government sent their soldiers in, they would kill the people and burn down or tear down the house. How dangerous that kind of teaching was to that civilization. Well, now here we are in an extension of that civilization. If you studied world history, you know that America points all of Western, the white folks. Europe and America point their roots to Greece. Is that correct? Back to Rome, through Rome to Greece. So now, if Pythagoras was treated that way because he was a threat then, how do you think the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is viewed now?
See, when the sun and the rain get ready to make the crop come up, you notice that Master Farrakhan Muhammad first compared us to that life germ that's down there waiting to germinate.
Yes, sir.
Then on the other hand, he compared us with the earth that contains the life germ.
Yes, sir.
We're both of them. We're the seed and the soil that contains the seed.
Yes, sir.
This is why the sun and the rain have to affect not only the seed that it wants to grow, but it must also affect the soil that is around the seed that the seed is going to grow out of. And this is what Minister Farrakhan realized and realizes today. That in order for the Nation of Islam to be successful, we cannot divorce ourselves from the rest of our people. You see, when you plant a seed, that seed doesn't have enough nitrogen, doesn't have enough hydrogen, doesn't have enough of a lot of things to make it develop. It is the soil that the seed is planted in that supplies it with those nutrients. And only when the sun activates it and the rain rains down and washes it into it does it happen, but it gets it all from the soil. So the seed and the soil are one. They make a plant together. Can't look at this plant and say, that was a mean seed. The soil ain't hitting on nothing, but that seed was bad. If the soil wasn't hitting on nothing, you would have never seen the product of the seed. So one of the mistakes that we made in the past, as Muslims, Brother Kevin touched on it a little bit, was that we were arrogant in our knowledge, what little knowledge we had. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we just like roosters. As soon as they see the light of sun, they crow. Now, they don't know what it is. It might be some cat up there with a strong flashlight. But he holler before he even see what it is. But we were so wrapped up in we're Muslims. You're a lost found. You're a dead nigger. You know that? You're dead and stinketh, Lazarus. Oh, yeah, we used to do all that. Hey, Laz, you know, yeah. Mr. Farrakhan said, hey, you never make it like that. You're not even studying the guerrilla warfare. See, me and my crew used to supposed to have been experts on guerrilla warfare, not the physical kind. We read guerrilla warfare and put it in a psychological warfare thing, and it made us moderately successful. But like he said, hey, y'all don't even really understand that. Did you read what Mao Zedong said? He said the only way a gorilla can be successful, you got to be able to swim among the people like the fish in the water.
And the fish is natural to the water, and the water is natural to the fish. That way the enemy can't pluck you out. We run around here talking about, yeah, I'm a Muslim and later for you niggas. And the enemy can come get us, and y'all be saying, I'm so glad they got them arrogant niggas out the way. Okay? But see, if we lock arms like we're supposed to, that little brother that's dead today, the little Perry brother, would be alive. I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, we bear the guilt. We, the black people in the community, we bear the guilt of that little brother's death. Because if we were like we're supposed to be, that cracker would not have dared even come in the community. And brothers and sisters, this is, no way out, spooky, long range, nothing. It can happen overnight. Minister Farrakhan has the plan because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave it to him, and I know it so well. It's simple. It is very simple. We don't have to start no revolution. We don't have to raise no whole lot of hell, do no demonstrating, or none of that. All we have to do is get together and be ourselves. And let white folks get together and be themselves. And we don't mess with their thing, and they better not mess with our thing. And we'll be all right. See, let me tell you, this power program that the minister got, do you think that the thing is that he wants to set up a beautiful enterprise to show the world that we can take care of business? No. There's more to it than that. We have a nation to build. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that before a wise man builds anything, the first thing he establishes is security. You ever notice that? When they get ready to build a building downtown, they ain't doing nothing but laying the foundation. But you go down there at night, you'll find security guards, won't you? They don't wait till the building gets up and then going to try to secure it. They secure the ground before they start building, okay? Now, before we can start talking about this nation time, we got to talk about some security time. How can we have nation time and our little babies are being murdered and we can't even take care of the murderer? No, when we do power and we become economically solvent like we ought to. So what's that got to be with security? Hold on a minute. If we bought up this whole section, we refurbished it, we built apartment buildings, okay? We had our businesses in here. We had our folks living in here. We cleaned it up. No dope, no crime, no none of that foolishness. No liquor stores. Then we would go and get Mayor Koch. And we would say to the mayor, Your Honor, we know the crime problem in the city of New York. Listen. And we know that you really need more policemen. You're really undermanned. That's why next year they want to hire some more. Thousands of them, they say. Got the biggest police force in the world right now, but they need more. So yeah. But we can relieve some of them that you got. Listen. We have our neighborhood, and I think if you check your crime reports, you will find that in the last 6 months, you have not had a crime reported in our area. Obviously, you're wasting your money. So why don't you take those good, kind officers and put them where the criminals are? And we will police our own neighborhood. And if it gets so where we can't handle it, sir, we'll call you. Don't call us. We'll call you. All praise be to God. But let's get to it. How can you talk about people worshiping an unknown God now? If God is unknown, how can you worship him? How do you know if you're pleasing him in your worship? If you don't know him, you don't know what he likes. If you don't know what he likes, you don't know what it takes to please him. You could be insulting God in the name of worship. Praise is due to Allah. Why would a father, just use your own common sense, why would a father not want to be known by his children? Why not? I mean, the most worthless, look here,
Well, you might not do nothing for them, baby, but you get mad as hell if you find out that their mother is teaching them to call some other man daddy. You ain't gave them a quarter since '02. But boy, you just see them calling another man daddy. What you talking about? That's my baby. I mean, that's any father. Then if a rotten father feels that way, you know the best father's gonna feel that way. Right. He intends to be known, but he had a purpose in hiding his identity for a period of time. Yes, sir. Because there was a special work that had to be done. Come on. That could not be done in the presence of God and the knowledge of him to all the people. Right. And it happened 6,000 years ago. Right. 6,000 years ago, there was a man made to rule. And he was told to multiply and replenish the earth and to conquer and subdue it. But all you have to do is read that over again. And they tell you that's not talking about the original man of the earth. Look what God says, multiply and replenish. The word replenish comes from the Latin word plenare. Plenare means to fill. Re is a prefix which means again. You can't do something again that you ain't done already. To refill means to fill something that's already full. So he said that they were to replenish the earth, repopulate the earth, displace people in the earth with their own people, subdue and conquer the original man. This man whose job it was to do this, man named Yaqub. You'll find his name, you'll find Jews in Israel right now with his name. You'll find Muslims with derivations, Yaqubu and Yaquba, right? The Hebrew name, Yaqub, translated in the Bible as Jacob. Right. And if you study Jacob very carefully in the Bible, you'll see that it tells the same story. It says that Jacob wrestled with an angel till the break of day, right? He said, I'm not going to turn you loose till you bless me. Come on. He said he touched the hollow of his thigh and threw it out of joint. And you and I sit up in Sunday school and teach the little children that, you know, his hip was thrown out of joint and so forth. No, the hip ain't the hollow of your thigh. Hollow means an opening. The hollow of your thigh is that opening in between your thighs where your genitals, where your reproductive organs are. And to throw that out of joint means he tampered with the genes of the original man. He wrestled with him until the break of day. What happens at daybreak? Light comes out of darkness, doesn't it? So he wrestled until he could get a white people out of the black people. That's all that was on the earth at the time. Now, in order to get some people to do this work, this man Yaqub had to use persuasion. Right. He didn't have an army, he couldn't force nobody. So he had to use great wisdom and persuade the people to cooperate with him in this venture. So in getting his followers together, he began to teach them, challenge those other people. That's right. On their religion. That's right. Challenge them on their God. Yaqub knew the religion of Islam. Yaqub knew that the creator, the original creator of the universe, was dead. Do you hear me talking to you? Don't panic. No lightning bolt's gonna come in here unless we throw them. Come on now. He knew that the original creator was no longer in existence. So he taught his people to challenge these people to produce the creator, knowing they could not do it. And when his people saw that they could throw a challenge like that and the people couldn't answer it, then they believed in Yaqub. That's right. And they would follow him and do anything that he wanted done. Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. As we say, brothers and sisters, that one that created everything, including himself, died like everything that is created, like everything alive died. But God is not dead. Hold on to your feet.
Make it clear.
And look, imagine how shook up these people were when Yaqub's followers confronted him. All right, so your God created heaven and earth. What's he done lately? Where is he?
That's right.
He said, well, we just believe it. We just got to have faith. That will never stand up in an intelligent mind. Now, I don't mean to insult nobody, but that kind of reasoning will not stand up in an intelligent mind. In order for that kind of reasoning to stick in your mind first has to be destroyed. And once your mind is destroyed, then somebody can teach you that nothing but faith, I just believe.
Come on, brother. Come on, brother.
You know, it reminds me, and I'm sorry the radio audience is about to leave us. We haven't really got into the mystery God yet. But you know that just believe and everything on faith and all that stuff reminded of a good Christian Science joke I heard years ago. Said that a friend met a friend of his who he hadn't seen in years, and he didn't know he had turned Christian Scientist. So his Christian Science friend asked him, well, how's your father? He said, oh, he's real sick. He said, oh, no, he's not sick. Says, Mrs. Mary Baker Eddy teaches us there's no sensation in flesh. It's all in his mind. He's not sick. He just thinks he's sick. He said, oh, okay. So he left. So about a month later, they ran to each other again, and in their conversation, the guy says, oh, by the way, how's your father? He said, oh, that fool, now he thinks he's dead. So, as Yaqub's people challenged the people, those with intelligent minds didn't try to defend that was indefensible. So they began to soften up and listen to Yaqub. And he began to get followers. He got so many followers when they arrested him and his followers, they filled up the jails, and they still had more preaching on the streets than they had in the jails. But we're not going through that whole story. You'll have to stick around and study with us to get that. But he founded a whole new civilization by challenging the people on the God, on the true God, and then leading them to a spook God. Today, those of us who are backing, following, and helping Minister Farrakhan are being led by him to stand on the foundation of the true God and to challenge who is that mystery God.
Come on. Yes, sir.
Now, we want you to understand, especially our good black Christian brothers and sisters, we're not just after you. We're not just after the Trinity, Father, Son, and that ghost. Or as that hippie said, Big Daddy, Junior, and the Spook. We're not after them, just after them. Those people who believe in snakes, we're after them. Those Hindus, Brahmins as they call them, who are so ignorant, their babies will be dying for lack of milk, and they got a cow out there talking about that's God, we can't milk him. We're after him. We're after them spooky Muslims who every time you say Allah, they point and say, Allah, Allah. We're after them too. Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now, I remember years ago, one of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's first followers to go on Hajj came back from Mecca and said, dear Apostle, you know, I went over there, you taught us that Mecca was such a clean city, and taught us that people were so honest that if you lost your wallet or something, they had holes in the wall, you go back, somebody would have picked it up and stuck it up and won't even have taken the money out. And said, you just told me all sorts of things. He said, I got over there, the streets are filthy. He said, they got camel chips all on the ground, can't hardly walk for, and say, hey, folks are ripping each other off, picking pockets and stuff. Now I'll be like, Muhammad said, brother, that's not the Mecca I'm teaching you about.
All right. Come on.
Isn't that? See, in our lessons, when you talk about, your reward is you get a free trip to Mecca to visit Brother Muhammad and all that. He's talking about that Mecca, and he's talking about that Muhammad. If you listen to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's series, Theology of Time,
Listen to how he says, we're not going to fight a people for that old corrupt city.
That's right.
With those white scientists. Yeah. All the scientists over in Mecca white now. He said, no, we're not going to submit to any white people anymore, no matter what they are and who they claim to be. He said, we're going to build a new Mecca with black scientists as it was in the beginning. Now, we hear some of our people, well then, wait a minute. Then why then is Minister Farrakhan moving us closer to them? Why are we engaging in some of their practices more? He also is moving us closer to the Christians of our people.
That's right.
He's been in the church. There was a time when he was spending as much time in the church as he was spending in the mosque.
Right.
You see him embracing and aiding the Hebrew Israelites. It doesn't make any difference which direction they're going. We got to get them all.
That's right.
The Hebrews, the Christians, and the Muslims have got to understand. When God says he's going to create a new heaven and a new earth, Hebrews, Jews, and all the rest of y'all, that means Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. Christians, Il Papa, can travel all over here trying to make friends. Rome is going to be destroyed. Mecca in Saudi Arabia is going to be destroyed because ain't none of them fit to be called the Holy Nations. It talks about 4 and 20 elders. 24 people that we're familiar with in Islam. We know them as the 24 scientists who write the history in advance. The ones who write the scriptures and take them out and give them to the people that we have always called prophets. The 4 and 20 elders. There are 12 majors and 12 minors. The 12 major scientists are the 12 who always have the secret of God within them. They're the ones who always have known who he is. But now, it says in the book of Revelation, God's sitting on the throne with a book. Got his elders standing there now. They're all struck by the book. Who can open the seals on the book? Don't none of them volunteer. But they said a little lamb walks up. He didn't say, may I have the book, sir? Took the book. That's right, brother. Give it here. I thought the next line they were going to say he slapped somebody or something. I mean, said the lamb took the book, ate the book, and started spitting it out. And what did the elders do? Said they took off their crowns, didn't they?
Yes.
Now, if they had crowns, what's that telling you? They were in rulership.
Yes.
Took off their crowns. Now, to show you how heavy the lamb was. They didn't take their crowns and put them on his head. They knew the crowns they wore on their heads weren't worthy to touch his head. They put their crowns at his feet.
Yeah.
That's how bad that man was.
Yes, sir.
The book said he looked as if he had been slain from the foundation of the world. Hadn't been slain, but looked as if he had been slain. Right as he was at the foundation upon which a whole new world was being built, it looked as if he was dead in 1975, but you see him coming back into rulership. Let's hone in on this, brothers and sisters. Fellow Muslims, 21st surah of the Holy Quran spends the whole first 8 chapters convincing us that revelation can only come from a man. Revelation can only come from a man. All right. How did Moses get his revelation? Said Moses got his revelation by talking to God face to face as a man talks to his friend.
That's right. That's right.
If Moses got revelation from God, and revelation can only come from God, is 1 + 1 2? What does that make God? All right. I mean, let's just use like the Bible says, prove all things. Hold fast to that which is. It didn't say believe nothing without proof. It said prove all things.
Right.
Hold fast to that which is good. Now, you all
always pictured a man in your head when you thought of God. Yes, you did. Time you prayed, you got something in your head. I know what it was, but yeah, you had that hippie picture some of you got hanging on your walls. Little quiet, holy-looking thing, looking like he just stepped off the plane from San Francisco. See, I got worried when they started calling him Sweet Jesus. I knew I didn't want to follow the dude. And that got me right there, Jack. Not the kid. Now, the Bible and the Holy Quran say that God sees, which requires eyes.
That's right.
Says he hears, which requires ears. Says he feels, which requires a nervous system. Said he sits on a throne. I mean, let's be for real. According to the hadith, the sayings of Prophet Muhammad, one day he and his followers were sitting, or his companions were sitting around talking about the fundamental principles of Islam, the first of which is belief in Allah. And as they were discussing, you must believe in Allah, they said, Muhammad said, you must not only believe in Allah, but you must believe in the meeting with Allah. You don't hear too many so-called Orthodox Muslims talk about that hadith. In fact, there's a whole lot of hadith they don't talk about. They pick and choose.
That's right.
You know, selective worship. What do you mean believe in the meeting with Allah? If Allah is a spirit, you might have already met him. You wouldn't have no way of knowing. I mean, just look at it.
Come on.
And this is, you know, our whole concept has just been messed up. It doesn't fit in with reality. That's why you got this big battle going on, been going on for years between science and religion. True science has no battle with religion because science means knowledge and God is the best knower. The Bible says Enoch walked with God. He walked with a spirit. Spirit can't walk, no feet. Moses didn't talk to no God in no bush. He said like a friend. You know, you get awful suspicious if every time you went to see your friend, he'd hide behind a bush. You say, wait a minute. Hey, I want to check this dude. You go tipping around that place and let me see what We're not mocking brothers and sisters, but you know, sometimes you think about it, it gets pretty funny. According to the Bible, now I'm not going to tell you exactly where, because you're lazy. You go right there and wouldn't read nothing else. But I'll tell you the book is, and you just read the whole book of Genesis. In the book of Genesis, they got God eating veal chops and cornbread. Now see, the minute I saw that, now with the veal chops, it might have been all right to say God was a white man, but when they said cornbread, I knew that was jive. Said that's what Abraham fed him. Veal, corn cakes, which is the way we like them best, wasn't it, brothers and sisters? And the oven was all right, but we like to put them in the skillet. They say they fed him corn cakes. I know he was from home, too. But check this out. You know, we've taught this, and people have come back to us and said, well, you know, it doesn't say in the book that was God that he was feeding. Come on, use your brain. It said that these three men came walking toward Abraham's tent out in the plain. And when Abraham saw them approaching, said he ran and he knelt down in front of one of them and called him Lord. The Bible says Abraham was a friend of God. You don't mistake your friend. He's a friend of God. How is he going to mistake somebody else for God? He didn't have to go and say, now let me see which one. Eeny, meeny, might be. Maybe Mo is God. He didn't go through that. He went right to the one he knew and said, Lord, fell down on his knees.
That's right.
Said, Lord, you look hungry. Let me fix you something to eat. Say, now I can have my wife to kill the young cow, the young calf,
Say, and then I can have her. And he was talking so long, God said, hey, do as thou hast said. God's mouth watered. This guy's sitting there talking. That's right. I mean, this thing is real. That's what he said. He said, God, go do as thou hast said. Don't talk, man. Move. You know what I mean? So while Sarah was getting the food ready, check how real God is. You know, Abraham had walked up and knelt in front of him, got close to his feet, you know, and embraced him and all that. Abraham said, God, you want a little water? Want to wash up a little bit before dinner? See? God, he said, you know, you look kind of tired. He didn't tell him you probably smell kind of tired too, you know. He said, you want some water? Yeah, got some water. You need no water for a spook now. Spook don't sweat, don't need no deodorant, nothing. Understand? But he had to go wash God's hands and feet and face and stuff off before he ate dinner. All right. Enough of that. I think you get the picture. Read it for yourself. You think we're making it up? Read it for yourself. That's right. Now, God, according to all of the teaching that we have gotten, is coming to destroy this wicked world. Now, that's the part that is true. But now, you and I have always been taught these fire and brimstone stories that we could just see the whole earth going up in flames. Yeah, God's going to destroy everybody, especially as the Bible says that there are none righteous, no, not one. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So, you know, when they say God's going to destroy the wicked and going to destroy the world, we see all of it going. Ain't no hope. That's why some folks get out there and boogie. Oh, man, ain't no sense, man. He's going to take it away anyway. You might as well get on out here. But see, what you got to understand is the Bible was not written in English. The people back there didn't speak English. And even the New Testament, though it was not written, at least we don't have the versions of it written in the language that Jesus and Paul and all the disciples spoke. The oldest transcript that they have that they still are using to translate is Greek. That's right. That's right. And in the Greek language, that word that's used as world about the destruction is cosmos. And the word cosmos is a Greek word for system. Right. That's right. System. There is a wicked system that God. That's why you have different. You have the sports world, the entertainment world, the political world. Those are systems. That's right. All right. Just wanted to clear that up so everybody won't think that we all going somewhere there. The Bible says, generations come, generations go, but the earth abides forever. God ain't going to destroy everything. He's going to destroy what won't act right.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad points out to us there are only 5% of the population classified as civilized. Understand this? But 15% have the knowledge and wisdom of civilization. Well, then why is it only 5% are civilized? Because it takes more than the head, it takes the heart. Yes, sir. And of that 15%, he said only 5% has the desire for freedom, justice, and equality for the entire human family. Yes, sir. The other 10% is content to enslave the other 85% of the people who don't know and suck their blood and live off their people. Be rich and filthy rich and let the people, the 85% of the people, suffer so that they can live in splendor and in comfort and ease. All praise is due to Allah. Which means there are approximately 200 million Americans. Right? 5% would be 10 million. Which means that if Minister Farrakhan then infuses not the wisdom, but infuses the love and brotherhood necessary, the humanity and the love for your brother, that which you love for yourself, into the 5%, make that 5% as prophecy said it would, he as an atom or an atom will have been cracked into 10 million parts, wouldn't he? You imagine 10 million Farrakhans? All praise is due to Allah. Hey. Now, I just wanted to run that down for you to understand who this man is and what he's doing. Most of you were here when we distinguished the atom and the atom and about cracking it, into 10 million pieces. This is just a little bit more into that, to what that actually is referring to and what you've got. When you get that 10 million, you got the 5% that you want. Not nobody just because we call ourselves 5. And most of us do it.
Yes, sir. Most
of us have considered ourselves, because of the description in the lessons, we're the poor righteous teachers, you understand, and never blah, hey, ain't enough of, we ain't 5% yet. 5% is mathematics is Islam, Islam is mathematics. 5% is 5%. Ain't no way in hell 300 or 400 of us gonna get together and we 5% of 200 million.
That's right.
We ain't 5% till we become 5%. When we get 10 million, all feeling and thinking the same way, we got the 5%, and we're ready then to take the stranglehold, the fingers of the 10% from around the throat of the 85%. When Master Farrakhan Muhammad raised up the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did teach us, did work with us personally, on a person-to-person, day-to-day basis for over 40 years. But let me tell you, when he first started off, we didn't really give him the credit he deserved. We didn't really recognize him for who he was. And when we finally woke up and realized what we had in our midst working with us, we went overboard. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad always described us as a people of extremes. When we realized that we had been so negligent in paying honor and praise to him, then we got over-praising and over-honoring. And what happened was, there grew up in the nation a whole cadre of Muslims who were giving the Honorable Elijah Muhammad total credit for the work that he was doing. And this was no accident. The enemy purposely planted that seed. If you read the newspaper articles and the magazine articles back in those days and get some of the old television film, you will hear them talking about how Elijah Muhammad pulled himself up by his own bootstraps, how Elijah Muhammad founded the Nation of Islam in Detroit. Taking Master Farrakhan Muhammad, the God himself, completely out of it. Yes. And there were some of us who were dumb enough to fall prey to that and began to put the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the place of Master Farrakhan Muhammad. And he just couldn't root it out of us. So he proved it the best way he could. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad then, to show that he wasn't the one necessary, he left. Left us. You don't believe Allah is God and not me, I will prove it to you. So he withdrew. Prepared another one to do the work that Allah had assigned to him. And they said, now watch how Allah worked through Minister Farrakhan. You don't need Elijah. The God is independent. He said, so now both the God and I will exert our power through Minister Farrakhan. Praise is due to Allah. Hey, we're solving a problem today. One of the 34 problems that Master Farrakhan Muhammad left for us to solve. It's the 7th problem, talking about the cracking of an atom. He said Mr. Muhammad cracked one atom into 10 million parts. That's mean. Can you imagine if this atom of wisdom is put into the hearts of 10 million of our people? That is approximately at least one person in every black household in America. I mean, wouldn't be a family in America without at least one Muslim in it. But that's what the book said. Now don't be skeptical. Because remember when this book was handed out, 1934. Now in this book it tells about the white man losing the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal, and at that time it looked totally impossible.
He was in such strong position in those two places till that drove a lot of folks out of the nation. Said, man, this cracker ain't gonna never give up them canals. He ain't got neither one of them now, has he? That made a bunch of folks who had thrown this book down go back and start studying again. So let me find out what's next. So when he talks about 10 million, that ain't no big thing. You know. Then the next line says, then Mr. Sharif wants to know how much the 1/3 of a cracked atom weighs. Mr. Sharif wants to know. Now, when we used to study this, all of us that I know, we discussed it together, I mean throughout the country, we were under the impression that Mr. Sharif was one who's in authority, like a teacher or something, and that he's testing us out. I know the answer, but I want to know from you. How much does 1/3 of this cracked atom weigh? But I was discussing it with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad one day, and he straightened me out on that meaning, and it took on a whole different thing. I understood it for that day, but I didn't understand the depth of it until this day. He says, brother, why does it say Mr. Sharif wants to know how much 1/3 of a cracked atom weighs? He said, because Mr. Sharif does not know. Muhammad cracked the atom, Sharif trying to figure out how did he do it. Muhammad is the best name of God, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Sharif is a good Muslim Arabic name, but it's not a name of God. It's referring to the Muslims in the old world of Islam who are watching this man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, come up with Master Farad Muhammad guiding him and cracking an atom. What do you mean cracking an atom? Then he wondered, well, how much does this 1/3 weigh? We'll get to that in a minute. Why crack an atom? You know what happened when they, and you know in 1934, white folks had not cracked no atom. Right? They were still working on it. We were already trying to learn about it. When they split the atom, they unleashed the most powerful force they had ever run into. Nuclear power, didn't they? That's what it's talking about. When it cracks this atom and unleashes the power of this black man in America. The power that's in him. Why 1/3 of a cracked atom? Because the whole dominant Muslim world today are looking and wondering just how deep, how heavy is this man Farrakhan? And how deep must have been the other 2/3 of the atom if this 1/3 is so tough? All praise is due to Allah. Now, the word atom was taken from a Greek word, atum, which was supposed to mean indivisible. And when the atom was split, a lot of the scientists began to say that the Greeks, because they didn't know that the atom could be split, that they had given it the wrong name by calling it a name which meant indivisible. Because now an atom could be divided. Oh, no. No. We began as an atom.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And though we divide, we multiply at the same time. This is why white folks are still trying to find the secret of life. That's the one key that they haven't got. The one key is that they don't have the mathematics. See, in all the highest mathematics white folks got, dividing is the opposite of multiplication.
Yes, sir.
But in the reproduction of life, you multiply by dividing.
Yes, sir.
And he hasn't figured out the formula yet. Okay, so though the atom is split, it yet is indivisible. But now, look at the real meaning. What this atom is talking about. An atom
is the smallest building unit of matter. That's what they taught y'all in physics. I know it, right? Now, I didn't take physics. A little X-lax, a little phenomenon every now and then, but other than that, I don't know that about physics. But they don't say that the atom is the smallest unit of matter because they've proven that inside the atom is a neutron, proton, electrons, all that foolishness. But they say it is the smallest building. You begin with the atom when you want to build. The atom has component parts, but you must have an atom in order to begin to build. How many of you are familiar with Grimm's law of shifting consonants? Okay, this is how Grimm's fairy tales came into existence. The Grimm brothers translated those fairy tales from all those languages that they didn't speak, but they discovered that in different languages that you got like BFCV. Those are all the same letter. You can go from language to language, and you can translate it by knowing that a B is the same as a F, is the same as a P, is the same as a V. Okay? That's why in German, father is spelled with a V. In Latin, it's spelled with a P. In English, it's spelled with an F, but it's the same word. By the same token, in German, you just have the T. You don't have the TH. But T and TH are the same thing. Same thing. Okay? It's the same letter. Just like BFPV, T, TH, and D are the same. You know that? T, TH, and D. You have mother with the TH. In Latin, it's mater. With just the T. In Spanish, madre with the D. Same letter. Atom and Adam are the same word. So when you look at talking about an atom, you're talking about an Adam, which is talking about the original man. So now, if you're talking about the fundamental building unit of matter, you're also talking about the fundamental building man of a kingdom. And the reason that you got this atom in thirds is because you got an original all the way down the line. You've got the first, the supreme being. The first one ever to have all of the knowledge that's in the universe in one individual, to bring in a whole new creation without using anything of the old. He's Adam. Then you've got the first one that he raised up. He raised up one from the dust of the earth, fashioned him and formed him in his own image and in his own likeness. Adam. And then the nation fell. The nation died. And out of the dust and the ashes of that dead nation, Master Farrakhan Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had to reach down and pick up some more clay, some more mud, some more dust, fashion another atom or Adam, breathe the breath of life into his body so that he could be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. All praise is due to Allah. So today you and I are standing here looking at something like the children of Israel had to look at when they got a chance to escape from Pharaoh, and they hadn't made it to the promised land. They had gotten free from the shackles of the slave master, but they yet had not made it to the kingdom. But Moses told them
that before they could make it to the kingdom, they had to make a choice. And he said, this day I put before you two signs. He said, one is a blessing and one is a curse. He said, one is life and one is death. And you can only make it to the promised land if you make the right choice. All right. What were the signs? You know, if you read the book of Numbers, you ever wonder why it was called the book of Numbers? Very interesting. You read the book of Numbers very carefully and you see where it got its name. In the book of Numbers, after they had gone through Genesis and Exodus and Leviticus, each one of them, their name told exactly what they were about. They got to Numbers. And in the book of Numbers, every man was numbered, it said. Everybody was put in their proper place with their proper people, and every group was given a flag, an ensign as it was called. And every group had a flag that represented, quote, their father's house. That's what happened in the book of Numbers. Flags had to be given, so that by your flag, people knew who you belonged to. People knew where you belonged and what you were supposed to be doing, and they knew who your father was. And here we have two flags today. They represent the houses of two different fathers. We have to be numbered. Remember that old song, Lord, I want to be in that number? Let's make sure we're in the right number. Here you have two flags. They have similarities. They also have differences. Let's look at the similarities. They both have red in them, right? In fact, they both have a solid red field. You say, oh, no, that one got red stripes. No, I'm not going crazy. I said they both got a solid red field. They both have red in them. They both have white in them, don't they? Both got stars in them, haven't they? There's an awful lot of similarity between these two flags there. And it's only a minor difference. This flag has the moon in it, and this one doesn't. And this flag has blue in it, and that one doesn't. Why? Why are they so similar, and why the dissimilarities? The similarities have to mean something, and the differences have to mean something. That's what we want to get into today. Now, we're not going to do a great deal of teaching today on the meaning of the flag of Islam. And the reason is because we have a booklet written by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad called The Flag of Islam, where he goes into great detail and all the science of everything that this means. We got them back there on sale. They're very expensive. I don't know how much they cost, but it's a booklet, so I know it doesn't cost much. It ain't no fortune. But we keep those on sale all the time. So it would be fruitless for me to stand here and go through all that, and then you pick up the book and read the same thing, or some of you have already read the book, got the book, and there's no sense in going to that. But just as a highlight, the red field back there represents the sun. And of course, the crescent represents the moon, and the five-pointed object represents the star, as it does in everything. We know that stars out there in the universe don't have 5 points, but that's generally accepted. In fact, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad points out, some stars have 6 points, 7 points, 8 points. You have stars, but when you see those stars, like an asterisk, some of them have as many as 8 points. But you recognize that as a star, okay? But now, the sun represents freedom. This is why we have this flag. This flag represents the universe. This is why I'm saying everybody is under it, whether you want to be or not. This flag, you can destroy this piece of plastic up here and every piece of cloth and paper that this flag is drawn on, but you can't destroy that flag. Nobody can mess with that flag, okay? Because that flag represents the universe. You're looking at the sun, the moon, and the stars. Everybody is under that flag. Now, if you got a universal flag, how in the world, when that universal flag is in conflict with a national flag, don't you think it makes good sense for you to go with the universal flag? Do you think a national flag is able to defeat a universal flag, or that a national government is able to defeat a universal government, or that a national ruler is able to defeat a universal ruler. We're looking at the sun that represents freedom. Sun is free. And it shines on the just and the unjust. Sun don't stop shining on you because you're wicked. If it was so, white folks wouldn't be getting skin cancer. Sun shines on everybody. Good, bad, old, young, sick, well, sun just shines. You get all this warmth, all this benefits, everything. The sun produces food for you, whether you're evil or good. You don't have to earn sunlight. Sunlight is free. So it represents freedom in our flag. The moon represents equality. Now, why does the moon represent equality? One reason the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us is because it keeps the water in equal bounds on the earth. The earth is 3/4 water. If it didn't keep shifting and just leveled out, it would drown all life. So the moon having a magnetic attraction on the earth keeps it shifting. That's why when they want to know what time the tide's coming in the morning, they don't go out and dip in the water. They look up at the moon. And they can tell by the phases of the moon exactly what time the tide's coming in and exactly what time it's going out. Because the moon controls that. Why? Because part of that water belongs to the moon. Moon has a stake in that. Read the little booklet that I'm telling you about, because I don't want to go into the whole history of it. But the moon, once being part of the earth and being blown away from the earth kept all of the water, that which was on it and that which was on the part that was blown away. So the moon got some ownership here. See? But the moon died, dead, because it had no life. See, water is the essence of life. Without water, there is no physical life. So the moon not having any water, now instead of it revolving or rotating independently around the sun, no, it has to go around the earth, and the earth has to take it around the sun, because the earth got all this water. I hope you understand. Because when you understand that, you understand our condition as a people who have been broken off from the human family, been robbed of all knowledge of ourselves. So having no spiritual life, that's why we have to depend for our motion and for our life on another people. We can't go nowhere but where they take us. We can't live nowhere they don't let us live. We can't work nowhere they don't let us work. We don't ride nothing they don't build for us to ride. Okay? Just like the moon. But the moon is equal. The only thing that keeps it from exercising its equality is it doesn't have the water, which is the essence of life. And the only thing that keeps us from exercising our equality is that spiritual water, the Word of God. You have the star there that represents justice. Y'all know that. Y'all seen Clint Eastwood playing sheriffs and stuff, ain't you? Well, the star on it. They'll never wear a cross. Now, you ever notice that? No. Wear a star. You used to wear a 6-pointed star, but now you notice most of the places that use stars, they use a 5-pointed star. But you still find some sheriff's departments, in the counties especially, that use the 6-pointed star. But that's another whole lecture. But the star stands for justice. All right? The 5-pointed star is used because the feet that march to justice has 5 toes on each foot. The hands that work and will fight to establish justice in the earth, we have 5 fingers on each hand. And we have 5 senses. And there are 5 principles, fundamental principles of the religion of Islam. All that star represents. Okay? Now that's all I need to say about that flag. What about this flag? He said, oh, I know about that one. See, Betsy Ross made that one back during the Revolutionary War, and they flew it, and then Francis Scott Key wrote a song about it called the Star Spangled Banner, back when America was fighting the Revolutionary War. That's what you know about the flag, right? All them's lies. All of them. Betsy Ross did not design the flag. And the white folks ain't got a book where they even tell that lie. Now, they tell some lies, but you can't find a white folks book that says Betsy Ross designed the flag. But they imply, they hint to you in school, and you come out thinking, they talk about Betsy Ross and the flag so much, you assume. You assume. You assume what they say, you make an ass out of you and me. Yeah, you assume that Betsy Ross created the flag. Betsy Ross was a flag maker in Philadelphia who was the first one to get a large contract with the Navy to make flags for their ships, and that's how she got famous. She did not create nothing. She sold what they gave her. They gave her the pattern, she made the flags. Well, then where did it come from? Why don't they teach you about the creation of this flag? Ain't that strange? All y'all saw the last few days is flags waving. And all your life, you can have a PhD in history, in American history. And I guarantee you, you were never taught in your professorial enterprises where this flag came from. Pitiful. The national anthem. Folks can just sit up when they hear it and they get filled up all in their throat. Black folks. Take the hat off, cover their heart. Oh, that's such a glorious song. Where did it come from? Well, you know, back during the Revolutionary War, when they were fighting, and Francis Scott Key, that great patriot and songwriter and poet, he had an inspiration, and he wrote those wonderful words and wrote that wonderful music, and that's how we got the Star-Spangled Banner. You lie a lot. First of all, Francis Scott Key did not write the Star-Spangled Banner during the Revolutionary War. Francis Scott Key wrote the national anthem in Baltimore in 1812 when they were fighting a war after America was supposed to have been free. That's the first thing. He didn't write the music. The music was so familiar, all he did was put words to it because he already knew the music. They being English, and all those Englishmen bringing all their habits over here. When the English used to gather in all of the pubs and they started getting a little tipsy, they had a favorite song. And the words were all about drinking and having a ball, you know. Yeah. All over England it was known. And when they came to the colonies, they did the same thing. They go into the local bars and they started drinking their grog, and they started getting a little light in the head and feeling real good. And they start lifting up their glasses. And they start singing. Da 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 da. That song was known by every drunk in the country. Understand? Now, I'm not saying the condition that Key's condition was in that particular night. But when he got ready to write an anthem for this country, all he could think of was the drinking song. So he did it, put some words to it. Praise the due to Allah. You know, all kind of myths like that. Well, we're not teaching on music today, teaching on the flag. You want to know about this flag. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that this flag was designed by a wise black scientist. And that when he designed it specifically to fit the nature and characteristics of the people and the government that they were forming. And he said when he told George Washington what the flag meant, George Washington says, yeah, but we can't tell the people that. So George Washington came up with a different interpretation of the meaning of the flag. Didn't change the flag, just reinterpreted the meaning for the public. Now, back in the secret societies and in the inner circle, they know the real meaning. That's why they keep it. He said, now what shall we tell the public? He said, okay, we will tell them that the red in the flag represents the blood of the patriots who died for this country. Okay, so them other 5 cats, it was 6 of them all together. 5 of them, the black scientist was the 7th. They were sitting around. They said, yeah, that sounds pretty good. We go with that. He said, now, we'll tell them that the white represents purity. It's fine, right on. Okay, we'll go with that. He said, now the stars represent justice. That we can leave that alone. He said, but we're going to tell them the blue represents truth. Now, anytime you see blue, it represents truth. And they even came up with the expression, oh, he's true blue. See? You're righteous when you true blue. But is blue true? You look up and see a blue sky, and you can get in a jet or a Challenger if you got the nerve. Go as high as you want to, and you never find no blue. In fact, when you get up there, when you look down, you see the blue down here, you know you didn't come through no blue. You can see a beautiful blue lake. Go get you a bucket of water and ain't no blue in it. Blue is a deceiving color. It is a sign of deceit. Where you see blue, you see deceit. That's why when you look at them cold blue eyes, you're looking at natural born deceit. Praise is due to Allah. Let's look at these flags. We notice that there's a similarity in the flags. Where they are similar, they mean similar things. Okay? The star in that flag stands for justice. The stars in these flags stand for justice. There's one difference. The star of justice in that flag is surrounded by a field of red, which stands for the sun, which represents freedom. But the stars of justice in this flag are surrounded by a field of blue, which represents deceit. I'll tell you what the man told him. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the man first. But he told him that they would have to put the stars in a sea of blue because justice would be available under their government, but only to the healthy and the wealthy. All right, let me see. Now, I told you that, they don't tell you in your textbooks, but there are some books where you can verify what we're saying by white folks. See, we know how a lot of our folks are. First thing they want to know, well, where can I find that in the book? They don't mean in a book. They mean in a white folks book. Hell, I can go write a book. It's in a book. No, we understand your code, okay? Just like a woman that was on the train, you understand? She asked this black Pullman porter, how long before we get to Cincinnati? He said, oh, about an hour. She said, thank you, son. So he wasn't 5 feet away when the white conductor came through, and she stopped him and said, Mr. Conductor, what time we get to Cincinnati? He said, about an hour. She said, thank you. He walked back up. The porter walked by and said, lady, I told you it would be an hour. What's the matter? Didn't you believe me? She said, I believed every word you said, son, but now I got it in black and white. So this is the way a lot of our folks are. So we're going to give it to you in black and white. There's a book, a small little booklet called Our Flag by a man named Robert Allen Campbell. Okay? Now, he talks about an old man. He says, this account involves a mysterious man. I'm just going to take time to read this to you so you won't miss any of it. A mysterious man concerning whom no information is available other
that he was on familiar terms with both General George Washington and Dr. Benjamin Franklin. Little seems to have been known concerning this old gentleman, and in the materials from which this account is compiled, his name is not even once mentioned. For he is uniformly spoken of or referred to as the professor. He was evidently far beyond his 70 years, and he often referred to historical events of more than a century previous, just as if he had been a living witness of their occurrence. Still, he was erect, vigorous. He was tall, a fine figure, perfectly easy, and very dignified in his manners, being at once courteous, gracious, and commanding. He was, for those times, and considering the customs of the colonists, very peculiar in his method of living, for he ate no flesh, fowl, or fish. He never used for food any green thing, any roots, or anything unripe. He drank no liquor, wine, or ale, but confined his diet to cereals and their products, fruits that were ripened on the stem in the sun, nuts, mild tea, and the sweets of honey, sugar, or molasses. He was well educated, highly cultivated, of extensive as well as varied information, and very studious. He spent considerable of his time in the patient and persistent conning of a number of very rare old books and ancient manuscripts, which he seemed to be deciphering, translating, or rewriting. These books and manuscripts, together with his own writings, he never showed to anyone. And he did not even mention them in his conversations with the family, except in the most casual way. And he always locked them up carefully in a large, old-fashioned, cubically shaped, iron-bound, heavy oaken chest whenever he left the room, even for his meals. He took long and frequent walks alone, sat on the brows of the neighboring hills, or mused in the midst of the green and flower-gemmed meadows. He was fairly liberal, but in no way lavish, in spending his money, with which he seemed to be well supplied. He was a quiet, though a very genial and very interesting member of the family, and he was seemingly at home upon any and every topic coming up in conversation. He was, in short, one whom everyone would notice and respect, whom few would feel well acquainted with, and whom no one would presume to question concerning himself, as to whence he came, why he tarried, or whither he journeyed. By something more than a mere coincidence, the committee appointed by the Colonial Congress to design a flag accepted an invitation to be guests while in Cambridge of the same family with which the professor was staying. See what they say? It wasn't no coincidence. It was here that General Washington joined them for the purpose of deciding upon a fitting emblem. By the signs which passed between them, it was evident that both General Washington and Dr. Franklin recognized the professor. And by unanimous approval, he was invited to become an active member of the committee. During the proceedings which followed, the professor was treated with the most profound respect, and all of his suggestions were immediately acted upon. He submitted a pattern which he considered symbolically appropriate for the new flag, and this was unhesitatingly accepted by the other 6 members of the committee, who voted that the arrangement suggested by the professor be forthwith adopted. After the episode of the flag, the professor quietly vanished, and nothing further is known concerning him. Now you know where your flag came from. Now you know why they don't talk about it much either. They said he came up with a flag that he felt was symbolic of this new government. All right. We've gone into one aspect of it. The Star of Justice, surrounded by deceit. There used to be a writer, one of the most prolific writers of Hollywood movies. His name was Josiah Pitts Woolfolk, but if you watch them old movies, you'll see Jack Woodford on the credits. That was his pen name. Jack Woodford, just out of curiosity one time, he picked 100 of the best-known judges in the country, 100 of the top judges in America. He wrote them all a letter asking the same question. Being a judge, having the background in law, knowing the system of government that they have here and the way the law works, he asked them, if you were on trial for murder, would you rather be
guilty and rich, or innocent and poor. And 100 judges checked guilty and rich. Judges. They admit that they would rather be guilty and rich in this government on trial and before the bar of so-called justice than to be innocent and poor. You have a better chance of going free. Now, there's no moon in this flag. Well, there's no blue in this flag, of course, because there's no deceit in the universe. Not natural deceit. Deceit in the universe is only that which is made by the deceiver. But there's no moon in this one, because there's not even a semblance of equality. Not even an attempt to pretend equality. So he didn't bother to put no moon in there. He could have shot one right in here or something, you know. They're not even playing about that. Said, no, you ain't equal, nigga, and don't you forget it. Now, you know, this flag has 13 stripes. The original flag had 13 stars. They told you that was the 13 original colonies and blah, blah, blah. But you know, it's a strange thing. White folks would accept a flag that had 13 stripes and 13 stars, and most buildings you go in, they won't even have a 13th floor. You get on the elevator, it skips from 12 to 14. They're so spooky. In fact, the psychiatrists even got a name for it now. Their spookiness about 13. Look it up. It's called triskaidekaphobia. The name of it. You know, I thought it was a joke when I first heard it, because Danny Kaye, good old Brooklyn Jew boy, was singing a song called triskaidekaphobia in a movie when I was a little boy. But I went and looked it up in the dictionary. It's actually a word. It's a phobia that people have about 13. Now, these people here swear that, oh, not 13. I don't want the 13th or nothing. You know? But they got 13. They never, you know, they grew, so they added stars. They never changed this. Why didn't they change it? They so scared of 13. Here's a cat sitting in a building with a flagpole outside with this hanging on it, flag up on top of the building, flag in his office with 13 stripes. He's scared to get on the 13th floor. Something's wrong. The Great Seal. Show you now, he's so scared of 13. The Great Seal, when y'all saw Reagan standing up there the other night on TV, you saw the Great Seal of the United States sitting up there that he always has, the presidential seal. Big old eagle sitting there. In this claw, got 13 arrows. Come, you got some money in your pocket? It's on there. Take it out and look at it. It's on there. 13 arrows. In this one, he got an olive branch with 13 leaves. One meaning war, one meaning peace. He can throw either way. But now up above his head, up above the eagle's head, you know your hands and your feet are controlled by your head. Up above his head, that decides whether to use his left claw or his right claw or both claws, are 13 stars. 13 five-pointed stars in the shape of the six-pointed Star of David, the sign of the Jewish nation, to let you know who controls this eagle, who controls America, who makes the decisions of war and peace, life and death for the United States government. You see the Star of David, look on your dollar bill, you see it for yourself. The Star of David, let you know the Jews totally control this government. They put it there for you to see. Praise is due to Allah. They are the hypocrites who deny justice. Right now in Israel, you know, the Jews got so mad. You read about it all the time. They're still talking about it. A few years back, when the United Nations voted a resolution and approved it, that Zionism and racism were the same thing. The Jews still mad at everybody who voted for that. So somebody over in the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, put a bill on the floor called an anti-racism bill. And they've been hung up on it for months. They can't do nothing with it. Why? Because, as was pointed out by Rabbi Meir Kahane, everything that the bill specifies as racism is approved of in the religion of Judaism. The only way you can outlaw racism is to outlaw Judaism. And that's what the Knesset is hung up in Israel about right now. They can't outlaw racism without outlawing their religion. And one of the rabbis has suggested now, while they table it, he suggested that between now and the time they bring it back up, that they rewrite it and put all of those things in there and then exempt Judaism. Only way you can vote against racism without voting against their religion is to say, except when you practice in Judaism. You can't practice racism unless you practice in Judaism. Sounds good to me. Praise the Duke to Allah. That's why in this country, where the Jews control, you don't find liberty, despite the lady. You know, I mean, they spent all them millions of dollars to restore the lady. But the lady don't represent liberty to me and you. No, no. There's even a sign on the lady to let you know there ain't no liberty here and now. Look at her crown. 7 spikes on her crown. We're going to get to that. That's very key. The 7 spikes in the crown of the Statue of Liberty have a good meaning. There are 7 seas, aren't there? 7 continents. When Pharaoh had 2 dreams, when Joseph was a slave in Egypt, Pharaoh had 2 dreams. And when Joseph interpreted both dreams, they both meant the same thing, that there was going to come good times in Egypt, followed by lean times. And there would be 7 good years, followed by 7 lean years. Okay? When a chicken gets ready to lay an egg, from the time that she becomes fertilized till the time she lays an egg, it's 21 days. I'm going into that. I know Brother Kevin told you we weren't going into no high science. This ain't high. If you want the high stuff, we can get into it, but this is little bitty stuff. How long it takes a chicken to lay egg? 3 periods of 7 days each. With a duck, you add 7, it takes them 28 days. With a goose, you have to add 7 more, it takes them 35 days. See that? That ain't no accident. Don't you believe in nothing like that with a pattern that distinct being a coincidence. In the book of Genesis, and then of course, you know, babies are completed at 7 months. Okay? In the book of Genesis, in the 2nd chapter, in the 2nd verse, it says that God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it. Why? You stop and think about that for a little. That's got to have a better meaning than God pick out one day of the week and say that's a good day. What happened to the rest of them? Yeah, man, well, sleep 6 days and wake up on the good day. You'd be safer. And then to show you how blind, deaf, and dumb we are, I've known black folks to get fired from jobs because they refuse to work on Sunday. Why? Because that's the Lord's day. That ain't what the Bible said. The Bible said he blessed the 7th day. Look on your calendar and see when the week starts and when it ends. Sunday is the 1st day. Now where'd you get that foolishness from? From that Pope over there. He didn't like God's day. He wanted his day. Sunday. The day they named after the sun when they were sun worshipers. So you every week, you honor the sun by taking the sun's day rather than the Lord's day as your day of worship. Praise is due to Allah. I say, well, let me now, why y'all hold y'all meeting on Sunday? Hell, that's when we can get y'all off. We don't honor no one day. All days belong to Allah. That's why we are not hypocritical. Everybody, who's that? Bobby Blue Bland and somebody else sing that song about how he balled all night Saturday night and then Sunday fall down on his knees and pray. Well, he's telling the story of our lives, ain't he? That's right.
Yeah, wait, Stormy Monday, ain't it? Yeah. Yeah. Talking about the Eagle flies on Friday, Saturday I go out to play. And Saturday he go out to play. He drag up Sunday morning, get on his knees and play. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Head about to kill him. Understand? From that bad stuff. See? So we're not hypocritical like that. Every day belongs to Allah. We'll get up Sunday morning and pray. Get up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if another one gets added. You saying? Morning, day, night. We wake up in our sleep. All belongs to Allah. That's the religion we're in. But why did God say that he sanctified the seventh day? He gave some other commandments that people by disobeying are causing the starvation on this earth today. According to God's commandments, and you can read it in your Bible, according to God's commandments, and any good farmer will tell you this, any smart farmer will tell you, you plant your crops for 6 years. The 7th year, you don't plant and you don't harvest. You let the crops that are there grow up, let them die and go back in the earth, and they will keep your ground fertile. But you're going to farm it every year, steady robbing the earth of its nutrients, and then wonder why it gets poor and won't nothing grow. Then you got to get all these fertilizers, all these chemicals, and spray on them just to try to get a crop to grow. But God teaches you how to do it right in the book. Just every 7 years. Yeah, but what we going to eat that 7 years? See, that's Negro thinking. God don't think like a Negro. If you're getting food 6 years, you ought to have sense enough to put enough away for the 7th year. Now, the 7th year is known as the sabbatical. Now, after 7 sabbaticals, which is 49 years, then you celebrate what is known as Jubilee. Jubilee is the 50th year. And in that 50th year, all accounts are settled up. Because every 7th year, if you got any slaves, you're supposed to let them free. But in the 50th year, all debts, everything, cleared up. All land is returned. Did you know nobody has the right under divine law to sell any land since you didn't make none, didn't bring none with you? How the hell you going to charge somebody for it? You know that's a violation of God's law? Well, how do you expect us to live? He gave you land. You were born on some land. And according to God's law, the land you were born on belongs to you. And you don't have the power to sell it. And if somebody needs to use it, like you got a lot of land you're not using, somebody needs to use it, they can lease it from you for 49 years. But in that 50th year, if you got anybody's land, you got to give it back to them. Then y'all can start all over again, whatever you want to do. But every Jubilee, everybody's own homeland returns back to them. This is why our brothers and sisters, the Indians that Brother Kevin mentioned, up there in Great Mountain, they have a custom. Why they telling the white man they're going to have to blow them out of that land? Because they're part of that land. When their babies are born, when they clip the baby's umbilical cord, they take a section of that umbilical cord and bury it in the land. They part of that land. The motto in the Bible for the year of Jubilee is proclaim liberty throughout the land. Does that sound familiar to any of you? Well, if you ever go to Philadelphia and you ever go to see the Liberty Bell, you will find that phrase inscribed on the Liberty Bell. Proclaim liberty throughout the land. Now you know why the Liberty Bell cracked the first time they rang it. Because of the hypocrisy of a statement like that when you got a whole nation of people within you that don't have no liberty. All right, we're going to wrap this up. This flag. Why it got 13 stripes? Why am I dealing with 7? Because you notice it's got 7 red stripes, apparently, and 6 white stripes. But as I mentioned earlier, actually that was a field of red. The field of red is continuous, but you got 6 white stripes interrupting it. Red
represents freedom. So at the beginning of this flag or this people, you have freedom. You have freedom interrupted. And after the last interruption, you have freedom again. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says this represents the 6,000 years of the white man, where freedom was totally destroyed on the earth, where brother enslaved brother. Nobody respected freedom anymore. And there'll be no freedom as long as he's around to do it. The reason they fear the 13 that white folks fear, and especially Friday the 13th, they call it what? Black Friday. And you and I should have jumped for joy and said, hey, that's my day. Hey, Black Friday. But when they said Black Friday, you and I got just like, oh, got to be a bad Friday. Black Friday. Just like a black cat's bad luck, but white cats don't hurt you. Devil's food cake and angel food cake, look at the difference. And you just check out what's been done to us. You just talking a black lie. No, I ain't. It's just a little white lie. I mean, we're something. Did you make it into the fraternity, man? No, I was blackballed. They won't give you a job? No, man, I must be blacklisted. That cat knows something bad on me. I'm scared he's going to blackmail me. Hey. Black Friday. Horrible to white folks. Once we found out what happened, we jumped for joy. That was a great battle between white folks and black Muslims. That's right. They call it Black Friday because when our brothers got through, they had chopped off 30,000 white heads, piled them up in the plains of Nicaea, and from a distance you thought you were looking at pyramids. It was white folks' heads. That happened on Friday the 13th, and white folks have always hated Friday the 13th ever since. I love it every time it comes around.